So the stadium vote went 11-2 in favor. I think that's it. That should be it, unless there's a third vote we don't know about. Seemed like needless drama yesterday, it would seem to me. Why wasn't the vote, by the way, taken in August? Why wasn't that the one that counted the most? Lots of shenanigans, I guess, yesterday with the city council. They definitely irked Washington's front office, Mark Klaus, I'm sure Josh Harris and company, but all's well that ends well. I thought it had ended a month ago, but it is now final. Washington heading back to RFK. The second time in the last few months we have felt this joy that we are heading back to RFK. Have you seen the pictures of the demolition of RFK Stadium? Definitely, I have felt, in looking at some of those pictures, I have felt nostalgic looking at those photos. You know, that gets you if you are of a certain age and you experienced RFK Stadium for football games in particular. And there were lots of other events, but it was, and we've talked about it for many, many years, it was truly one of those places. You know, the description of stadiums, iconic stadiums, the word cathedral is always used. And it did feel at times like a religious experience on so many days, so many nights. For so many of us, the memories that get conjured up in our minds and in our hearts when you think about some of those days and nights, man, nothing was ever like it. Nothing. Any game against Dallas was 10x the electricity, 20x the electricity. There was nothing like that stadium for a late 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon or a Monday night game against the Cowboys. I mean, the buzz, the decibel level, the bloodthirst because of the rivalry and the disgust and the disdain and the hatred for the Cowboys. And at the same time, the unity among all that were in that stadium, 55,000, 35. I mean, it impacted the game. It really did. That was a true 12th man. I mean, over the years, you know, long after RFK had shut down for football and FedEx had opened, you know, there were stories that would come out from Giant players, Eagle players, but the Cowboy players in particular were the most vocal in their memories of RFK. You know, I remember Danny White, Tony Dorsett, Randy White, Drew Pearson, all talking about the feeling of walking up those steps out of that locker room that they were in that end zone, which was, you know, for baseball, it was at one point when the Senators were there, the visitors' dugout. The Skins came out of the Senators' dugout. Now, once baseball was gone, there were no more dugouts. There was no more baseball diamond. You know, there was a period of time where Washington would play games with the infield, you know, in the coming across part of the field. Now, the Senators left in 71, so didn't have that afterwards. But the Cowboys, when they would talk about walking up those steps and out into that cathedral and the chants of "We want Dallas," they said it would make the hair on the back of their neck stand up. But it was also so incentivizing because they would talk about what it was like to go in there and play well and hear the decibel level drop to a level in which you could hear a pin drop. Because I'll never forget a Monday night game. This was after the championship game in 82. So they play in January 83. The Cowboys in the NFC Championship. Everybody's familiar with that game. It is by far and away, and I've said this 200 times since I've been doing this show, it is the single most electric environment for a sporting event I have ever been in, ever. Nothing has ever come close to that, and I've been to fights in Vegas and Super Bowls and championship games. I'll tell you, for a Maryland guy, Cole Fieldhouse at times was really something else, but nothing like that day. The stadium completely filled 45 minutes before kickoff. Not an empty seat in the arena for a game that kicked off, I think, at 12:30 Eastern. And the place was nuts all game long. But the following season, after Washington beat the Cowboys and then went on to win Super Bowl 17 against Miami, the league did what they did many, many times, which is Washington and Dallas on Monday Night Football to open up the season. Washington versus Dallas was not only the number one rivalry in the NFL in the 70s, 80s, and really into the early 90s, and maybe through the 90s until it became clear that Washington was a sinking franchise. And the number of important games were diminished. They just didn't happen that often. And all of a sudden, Baltimore came into the league. Baltimore, Pittsburgh became a big deal, and we had some others. Dallas clearly had this thing with the 49ers in the 90s. They had, an ongoing thing with the Eagles. We understand all that. But there was nothing close to Washington, Dallas for about 25 years. From about 1971 when George Allen arrived here until at least the mid-90s. There was no rivalry better than Washington, Dallas in the NFL, and most people would have had it ranked in the top 5 rivalries in all of North American sports. Seriously, Army, Navy, Ohio State, Michigan, Iron Bowl, Lakers, Celtics, Cowboys, Redskins. I mean, that would be, those would be, they were in that category. And so Monday Night Football, Washington and Dallas opened up against each other on Monday Night Football. I don't know, it's probably 6, 7 times in history. I think that it is the most, it's the game that has appeared the most in prime time, whether it's Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night football. I think Denver Raiders is number 2. I could look that up. Maybe that's changed in the last few years. But for many years, Washington-Dallas was the number 1 matchup in prime time going back to the introduction of Monday Night Football in 1970. The opener in 83 at RFK Stadium. This game was famous for Howard Cosell calling Alvin Garrett that little monkey. Remember that? And there was a big hullabaloo over that. Howard was such a progressive. He was so good for, so many people that were minorities. Ali, the relationship, he was forgiven for that. And it was a slip up and he was forgiven for it. But it made major headlines. But the game itself, it was, the Super Bowl, Doc, Riggo, Theismann, Jake, all of them will tell you. The Super Bowl was anticlimactic after the NFC Championship. Beating Dallas in the 82 season, January 83 championship game at home was bigger and felt bigger than winning the Super Bowl. It really did. So when we got to the opener of the 83 season, it was the rematch of the NFC title game. It was Redskins-Cowboys opening up the season. And remember, 82 was a strike-shortened season. They only played 9 regular season games. So there were a lot of people that thought that Washington's Super Bowl in 82, Super Bowl 17, was a bit fraudulent because the 49ers had won it the year before, and teams just, never got into a rhythm in a short sprint 9-game season. Washington went during that 9-game season 8-1. Their only loss, by the way, was a regular season loss to the Cowboys. So they open up, and now we're going to play a full season, 16. Well, Washington's not going to be the team. Dallas is going to be the team. And Washington sprints out to a 23-3 halftime lead. The place was insane. It was an insane asylum before the game. The defending champs opening up on Monday Night Football against their heated rival. That game almost equaled the championship game in terms of the electricity, the buildup, the whole thing. And the Skins were on fire. Theismann to Charlie Brown, Theismann to Monk, Riggo. They're rolling the Cowboys, blowing them out on national television, 23-3. Well, the Cowboys roared back from 20 down at halftime. And they came back, and Danny White hit Tony Hill on 2 bombs for touchdowns. And that's where I was headed with this, which is former Cowboys talked about there was nothing better than coming into RFK and quieting the crowd. And you could hear a pin drop on the last. I'm going back to look at the how long of a bomb it was. Hold on for 1 second. So 23-3 at halftime. All right. And a 75-yard touchdown pass from Danny White to Tony Hill in the third quarter made it 23-10. And then a 51-yard bomb from Danny White to Tony Hill made it 23-17. Then the Cowboys got the ball back again. They drove and they won and they took the lead, a lead they never gave up. They ended up winning the game 31-30. And the place, that was by the way, there was something incredibly compelling about how it could be so loud and then just so quiet. And by the way, back then, you might get literally 100 Cowboy fans. Maybe it was more than that. Maybe it was 200 Cowboy fans scattered throughout. You didn't hear them. And by the way, they didn't want to be heard because it would be a rough night for them, especially after they won the game. Theismann threw for 325 in that game, 2 touchdowns. And Danny White only completed 9 passes out of 20 attempts, but for 193 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that started off a season in which Washington and Dallas would meet up later in the season, both teams being 12-2, meeting in the next to last week of the regular season. That is the game often referred to as the fatigues game, where the Skins showed up in military fatigues off the plane onto the buses, and they went in a matchup between 12-2 and 12-2. The 2 best records in the NFL, the 2 best teams in the NFL playing for the NFC East title and the 1 seed throughout the NFC playoffs. You know, the likely winner, the winner was likely to go on to the Super Bowl. Yeah, the 49ers were there, and Washington would eventually beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And Washington beat the Cowboys 31-10. This was the famous, Everson Walls, Dennis Thurman, Michael Downs trying to break up the fun bunch in the end zone. But they went in and kicked Dallas's ass. So they ended up splitting the 2 games. But Dallas winning that opening Monday night game was crazy. Washington's 83 team, I think, is the best offensive team. I mean, you could debate it with 91. I think 91's the all-time best team. I don't really think it's a debate. They were, DVOA pencils them out as the all-time greatest team, although I think that's been supplanted recently by not the 85 Bears, not the 07 Patriots. There may be another team. They went back and did, a lot of other seasons going back to the 50s. Anyway, it may have been a Packers team that ended up being the number 1 overall DVOA team. I think 91 by far and away is the greatest Washington team of all time, but the 83 offense set the mark for the most points in a season in NFL history. Their 2 losses during their 14-2 season was that season opening Monday night loss to the Cowboys 31-30, and then a famous 48-47 Monday night loss at Lambeau. They lost 2 games by 2 points. They crushed the Rams 51-7 in the divisional round, held on for dear life in what was a very controversial game for 49ers fans in particular, beating the Niners 24-21. And then, of course, they got run out of the building in Tampa in Super Bowl 18 by the LA Raiders. But, yeah, seeing the photos of RFK being dismantled, you knew that day was coming. I have certainly had occasion over the years to drive by the stadium, and every time you drive by it and you look at it, you're like, wow. But it was an eyesore. It had turned into an eyesore, as had that entire property. That's what makes so much sense about the return to D.C. But when you see that stadium coming down, man, I remember when the Nats came to town. It was just fun to go back to RFK. I know that you could have gone back to RFK for soccer games. I just didn't. I wasn't really much of a soccer guy. But when the Nats came back, I remember going to at least a half dozen to a dozen games, and I would walk up to my old seats, to our old seats at RFK. 513, row 13, seats 1, 2, 3. About the 10-yard line behind the Redskins bench upper deck, there wasn't a bad seat in that stadium. Wasn't. If you want to, weigh in with your feelings that RFK is done, they're going back. This voting thing seems a little bit anticlimactic yesterday. I mean, I'm not. I felt like really excited a month ago or whenever it was, 6 weeks ago. But whatever. Delayed excitement. Now it's final. But if you want to weigh in with how you're feeling, if you've seen those RFK photos, if you've seen RFK being, dismantled, demolished, with maybe your favorite memory or two of RFK Stadium. 301 230 0980. 301 230 0980. We'll take some calls on that. On the show today, Denton's going to join us at 10:35 to talk some college football. Charch will be with us during the 11 o'clock hour to talk fantasy. We've got a game tonight. Buffalo hosting Miami. I might have, at the end of the show, a smell test pick on the game tonight. We're certainly going to get into the fact that Jaden missed practice yesterday. And then we heard from Marcus Mariota. We heard from Dan Quinn. We carried that live on the show yesterday. But we'll talk about the buildup here towards the Raiders on Sunday. But if you've got an RFK memory or two as the stadium is being dismantled and demolished, and you want to call 301 230 0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app. The 72 championship game, Kev, was better. It was New Year's Eve, and it was a party unlike any I've ever been to. Thank you for that, Tom. I appreciate that. A lot of you tweeting in. Phone lines are open. RFK is being demolished. It is being taken down sort of piece by piece. I don't know if you've seen the pictures. I will tweet out some of the pictures that I've seen. In fact, I just retweeted one of them right now. And look, in 5-6 years, we'll have a beautiful new stadium and a beautiful new area in town. And I think actually for me, in many ways, as a DC resident, just being able to do that to that area of town will be so great for the city. I don't know how it pencils out ultimately, how much the team and Harris and company benefit from this more so than the city or vice versa. But I have a feeling it'll be an ultimate win-win for both. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Yes, the 72 championship game, New Year's Eve, 1972, a mild night. Earlier in the day, the Dolphins had beaten the Steelers in Pittsburgh, by the way. These were the 72 Dolphins. One of the sort of interesting facts about the NFL in the early 70s is there wasn't home field advantage in the playoffs. There was a rotation of divisional host situations. So, Washington got lucky in that they ended up playing a wild card team in Dallas. Dallas was a wild card team in 72, but the NFC East was actually supposed to host regardless, as long as it was in the NFC Championship game. But the Dolphins, the 72 Dolphins, the undefeated 72 Dolphins, had to play the AFC Championship game in Three Rivers at Pittsburgh because it was that particular year was AFC Central. That's what the division was called back then. The AFC Central, it was their year to host the AFC Championship game if one of their teams, a division winner, Pittsburgh made it. So Miami won early in the day, and then Washington on a very mild, damp New Year's Eve. Weather was not a factor. Destroyed Dallas 26-3 and went on to Super Bowl VII to face the Dolphins. Yeah, both times Washington beat the Cowboys in the NFC title game. They went on to face Miami in the Super Bowl. Lost Super Bowl VII, won Super Bowl 17. All right, 301-230-0980. The RFK thing is done, finally, we think. I'm pretty sure this second vote, for whatever reason it needed to take place, it did take place 11-2. They only needed 7 this time. They only needed simple majority. Last time they needed 2/3, and they got 2/3 last time. It's a done deal. The agreement between the city and the team, by the way, these additional amendments were not voted on that the city council came to the team with in the 11th hour. I don't know if some of that stuff will get worked out on the side or whether or not it will be, put into the agreement as an amendment, but it was not voted on yesterday. And so we'll see what happens moving forward. Hopefully no hard feelings, just business, and they move forward together to get this deal done. But at the same time, RFK is coming down. I just retweeted, if you want to go to @KevinSheehan DC to see some of the pictures of what RFK looks like there in the final stages of the demolition. Some memories of RFK Stadium. Greg in Gaithersburg. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. I think we're probably pretty close to the same age, but we had seats in 527. And I had a lot of memories back from those days.
Yeah.
2 that were standoutish. One was when Larry Brown broke the 1,000-yard mark. I think he was the first Redskin to ever do it. And they stopped the game. They gave him a ball. And, he always looked like a warrior. He was beat up.
He always did, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. The other time it was a Monday night game. And it was the I Like Sonny Billy era.
Yeah.
And we were down. Kilmer was quarterbacking. They brought Sonny in.
Yeah.
We went ahead. And then on the last play of the game,
Walt Garrison.
I'm not sure if it was Randy White, but threw a pass to Walt Garrison on the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
And Kenny Houston nailed him and stopped him, and the Skins won. That stadium was unbelievably insane. I couldn't talk for a week after that game, but those were two of my most.
Yeah, no, the Ken Houston tackle of Walt Garrison right before he was about to cross the goal line on the final play of the game is one of the true memorable, iconic plays in Cowboy Redskin history. You know, that tackle, Ken Houston was such a great player. He's in his first year. It's early in the 73 season. They're playing on Monday Night Football, of course. And they had played in the NFC Championship game the year before. And as you said, the Cowboys were up 7-0. Sonny came into the game. He threw a touchdown pass, I think, to Charlie Taylor. And then Brig Owens picked off a Craig Morton pass. Craig Morton was the quarterback on that final play. He's the one that threw it to Walt Garrison. And yeah, that place insane that night. And Sonny was incredible in that game. Yeah, good one, Greg. Thanks for that.
We were in the stands. We were in the lower stands that were on springs and wheels. And I mean, they were just going up and down. It was just, I get chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, that game, it's very interesting. There's so many Washington-Dallas games available on YouTube as they were called by CBS, by ABC, who had Monday Night Football. But that game doesn't exist anywhere in terms of the actual call. You can find portions of the 72 championship game on CBS, but you can't find that game. And that was a big time matchup. Dallas, Washington on Monday Night Football. In fact, that's the first time they ever played. I believe it's the first time they ever played on Monday Night Football. Look that up, Max. Just Google Skins Cowboys Monday Night Football history and see if the first game was the 1973 14-7 game. Skip, go ahead.
Hello, Kevin.
What's up, Skip?
You know which one I'm going to mention. With my first NFL game ever, I was a kid. My uncle, he was a bit of a hustler. He got me a ticket, took a cab. Parents put me in a cab, went to the game. Giants versus Redskins, 1966.
Wow. That
game. The highest scoring game ever.
Still in NFL history. Still it is. It still is.
Second is the Chiefs and
Rams
game.
Yeah.
Okay. That everybody knows about. So this game, it's an interesting game because they scored 72 points. Jurgensen who had many very high yardage games, but not this one. Only 145 yards passing. However, 124 of those yards were to the great Hall of Famer Charlie Taylor, who had 2 long touchdowns. Bobby Mitchell had a touchdown. But they also had defensive touchdowns. That's where they got the number of points.
Well, the famous story about that game, which Sam Huff told many, many times over and over again.
I was going to. Well,
go ahead.
Kevin.
Go ahead.
Let me tell it. I was going to save that for him. But Brig Owens had an interception return and 2 other interceptions. He had a total of 3 interceptions, the late, great Brig Owens. And also Ricky Harris had a punt return.
Yeah.
But the most memorable part of the game was the end, which I stayed to the very end. And it was 69-41. They were driving. The second-string quarterback was in the game. And Sam Huff, who had just been traded from the Giants, the great Hall of Famer Sam Huff, he wanted to stick it to his old team. And he told the coach, kick a field goal. Normally, they would just run out the clock, kick a field goal.
Yeah, Otto Graham was the coach.
Otto Graham, yes, the great Hall of Famer Otto Graham was our coach at the time. And he went to him and said, kick the field goal, rub it in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If anybody knows Sam Huff, that sounds just like him, right?
It does. He told that story so many times. It was Charlie Gogolak, the first soccer-style kicker that kicked the field goal. By the way, I'm looking at the box score where they have what the point spread was. Washington that day was a 17-point favorite over the Giants. The Giants were terrible. They were 1-8-1. Washington was 5-6 going into the game. By the way, Skip, Washington Giants still the highest scoring NFL game of all time. The one you went to November 27th, 1966, 72-41, 113 points total. Number 2 is not the Rams Chiefs. Number 2 is Bengals Browns in 2004. Cincinnati won 58-48, 106 points. And then Rams Chiefs is the third highest, that Monday night 54-51 game. Thanks, Skip. Let me get to some others. Jimmy in Silver Spring. Jimmy, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, what's up, man?
What's up, Jimmy?
I remember I'm calling about that Monday night game. I have a personal story.
The Cowboys Skins 83
party.
Monday night game?
Yes.
Yeah.
We were at a house party. My friend had a house party, and Vernon Dean drives up in his burgundy Porsche with his supermodel girlfriend, and all night long he's talking about, check me out, Monday night, the Cowboys. Well, of course, what you didn't mention in those two,
Vernon Dean was on Tony Hill?
Yeah, twice. and after that game, I don't know if you remember this, but after that game, the Redskins were known as the Pearl Harbor Crew. You remember that?
Oh yeah, that all year long they were the Pearl Harbor Crew.
Right.
That was the irony of that. Yeah, they plus 42 in the turnover margin, all-time record, the 83 Skins, but they gave up 48 to the Packers, 31 to the Cowboys, 35 to the Raiders, 38 to the Raiders in the title game. They got torched all season long. That's why I'll never say, some guys that played on the 83 team think it was better than the 82 team and better than the 91 team. It was not better than the 91 team. The 91 team's defense was absolute shutdown. They shut out 3 of their first 5 opponents in 91.
Hey man, like I said, I'm a Cowboys fan. I just remember Vernon Dean, and I remember his hot girlfriend and his hot car, talking all that smack, and then getting used like toilet paper. Love the show, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jeff in Vienna. Jeff, RFK stories, nostalgic stories as RFK is being torn down, and the stadium agreement, the stadium act was finalized yesterday. Go ahead.
Kevin, mine are more music related. I will say that as a non-Commanders fan, that Summerall Madden opening anytime there's a game at RFK was just off the charts.
The best.
It was so amazing. Couple quick music anecdotes. Stone Steel Wheels Tour 89. My buddy's sister worked in one of the concession stands. And she goes, come on, walk with me. And we started walking down those ramps underneath the stadium.
Yeah.
And we turned the corner. I'm standing next to some 6-foot-tall, greatest-looking woman I've ever seen in my life, Jerry Hall.
And Mick Jaggers.
We were directly behind the stage. They finished the last note of Brown Sugar. They went right in front of me, like 15 feet away, into the van and out of the stadium. And in 93, Sting was opener on the Dead tour that year.
Yeah.
And I was backstage. He was screaming at the top of his lungs at the stage manager that he wasn't turned up loud enough in the mix.
Right.
He was having a total meltdown backstage, and it was just so entertaining.
Jeff, I went to a lot of concerts at RFK too, a lot of HFS festivals, but the noise for concerts, the stadium was built in such a way that the noise was retained in the stadium. It didn't get out. I mean, I saw the Jackson's the Jackson 5 Victory Tour. That was insanity. I saw U2 on the Zoo TV tour in 92. Probably
I think it was
saw
90,
Genesis there, so many people there that I remember, but I remember how loud it was for concerts.
Right. And July 4th, 1990, Paul McCartney on 4th of July was crazy good.
Okay.
And for me, the easiest thing was climbing off the Metro, make a right-hand turn, you make another right-hand turn, and you're walking, and you're right there, right in the front door. I never drove there because it was just too easy to take the Metro.
Yeah, and when you would get to the stadium, I've had people kind of reminisce this way too. It's like as you're walking up those ramps, to get to whatever level, and then you get to that opening where you can see, as you're walking through that tunnel to get out to the stadium, and then you look down on the field, and it was just spectacular. Like I've said this before, I can still put myself back in that stadium and feel it and smell it. Like, you know, we were all there so many times. It's just part of the whole thing. Yeah, incredible. Good stories, Jeff. Ron in DC. Ron, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Hey,
Yeah.
back in the day, my pops was a beer vendor for Budweiser at RFK for B&B Catering. So when I was old enough, to about 12 or 13, to sell sodas and hot dogs, I never missed a game at that point. I think that was back in 89, 90.
Yeah.
First game was a Cowboy game, and last game was a Cowboy game at the stadium. And my only regret is that I didn't have my camera that last game at RFK.
Yeah.
We beat the Cowboys, and we ran out on the field. But my favorite game was that I think it was a Monday night game where Troy Aikman got sacked in the end zone.
And, that was not a Monday night game. That was 92, Skins defending champs. Cowboys would ultimately win the Super Bowl. This is a big part of that, you know, that Cowboys Netflix documentary. That game was a massive game for Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson to come into RFK and well, in 91 they beat the Skins. 92 they were on their way to the division title, and Aikman got sacked. Jason Buck. You had, he tried to push it to Emmitt Smith in the end zone, and Danny Copeland came out of the pile with it, and Washington won a crazy finish, and it ultimately, was the game that Washington needed to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah, nobody knew who had the ball. I remember that.
Yeah,
he had the ball
exactly.
At the yard line, raising it up in the air.
Exactly.
So
now
now as a DC police officer, I still live and work in the area, so I've been seeing the demolition of the stadium, and I swear every time I drive past it every day, I got those memories of old RFK.
Yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate that. This, by the way, from Ernie, Giant fan, Raul Alegre. Do you remember? Yes, I do. That was another one of those silencing moments. Skins opened up the 89 season or 88 season? 89 season against the Giants on Monday Night Football. Washington was a mainstay opening up seasons on Monday Night Football. They did it many times. And it was a back and forth game, an incredible game. This is the height of Washington Giants, all right, because the Cowboys had sloughed off. They were at the beginning of the Jerry era. And Raul Alegre made a 52-yard field goal at the gun to beat Washington on opening night 27-24, and it was silence. I do remember that very well. Thank you for that, kind of. Steve in Houston. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, dude?
What's up? What are you doing, man?
Hey, man, going down memory lane, man. Dude, I got two. I have one recent. I have an RFK and I have a Northwest Stadium. Do I need to be coachable and just talk about RFK?
Yeah, it's RFK here today, Steve.
Okay, I'll be coachable. Dude, my man Jaron and I, another Carroll grad, like your dad, Archbishop Carroll, salute. 1995, we go to, what was that, against Detroit Lions.
Yeah, is this the Darrell Green pick six in overtime?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the game was exciting overtime. I think it was 30-30. And for whatever bonehead reason, we left. I don't know why we left, because overtime,
right.
know. All of a sudden, we're walking in the parking lot, and we just hear the crowd. It was just like 4th of July, based on the sound of the crowd. And we were like, dude, you mean to tell me we're all in the parking lot near Benning Road, and we left? And then, I guess we were on the train talking to some people and found out later when we got home that these Darrell Green picked it off and we actually won. Dude, we were so blown and so disappointed and excited at the same time.
Yeah,
but
right. Well, I mean, the game. I'm looking at the box score. There was no moment in which it would have made sense to leave. The game was up for grabs all the way, start to finish, until it went into overtime. So that's on you.
0 cents.
Yeah.
It is on me and Jaron.
Yeah.
Him and I were texting. I'm texting him. He's back home in D.C. and I'm saying, hey, look, I'm about to talk about this. And he's doing a whole rundown in our chat. Like, dude, we were idiots. We left. The parking lot exploded. Yeah, that was on us, man.
All right, be good, Thug. I'll talk to you later. Let me get to another one. Bob in Ocean City. Bob, go ahead.
Hey, your memory's fantastic, Kevin. I got to give it to you. Listen.
Well, I mean, I don't know. As I get older, I'm starting to. The problem is, I can remember 30 years ago. I can't remember what I did yesterday. That's the bigger issue. But go ahead.
Brother. First game, 8 years old. So I'm 70 years old now because I remember when it was called DC Stadium. It was just the aura, the smell. You hit it on it earlier. I sat in the end zone in 120, third row. All Washington Star tickets. We knew everybody. Fantastic games. The Eddie Brown game.
Oh, yeah.
In the rain where we turned
the mud game. Yeah. Okay. Against the Cardinals.
Got a ball that day. We third row because we had 7 balls in our family because we had 18 tickets in a row. Lots of footballs in the family. We're always there. Cowboy games, insane. Off the chart.
Yep.
Intimidating Harvey Martin. Talking about he had to see Mr. Ray because he was bald, and Randy White had to tell him who was Mr. Ray over there in PG County.
But remember Harvey Martin when Theismann, took the safety on Monday Night Football in '78, ran through the back of the end zone, taunting the Cowboys. Later that year on Thanksgiving, the Cowboys crushed Washington, and Harvey Martin threw a wreath into the locker room. Remember that? That was not.
He must have bought it at Mr. Ray's shop because I tell you what, we had him jacked up. Everybody in the stands were picking on him. Everybody picked on the Cowboys. Everybody picked on a different man. I just remember Charlie Taylor beating so many quarterbacks for them and talking to Sonny Jurgensen over the years. So many great times, Kevin.
Incredible
I hope the
times.
new stadium brings great memories for the future for us.
And it'll be for a younger generation, but I hope, look, I've got 3 boys. They never experienced that. Never, taking them to FedEx or them going to FedEx on their own. It just, there isn't one game in the history of FedEx Field that I can think of that rivals, the bottom 15 of big games at RFK. Now, the game that was hyped wasn't the Cowboy-Redskin game at the end of 2012. The following week, for some reason, that playoff game against Seattle, it was insane. But nothing like RFK. Denton's made accommodations to join us at 11. So we'll keep taking calls. I see all of you there. Stay there. Share a story, an RFK story, as the stadium's being demolished. And at the same time, the finalization of the RFK new stadium agreement/act was finalized yesterday. More of your calls next.
All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is finally official. The Washington Commanders are returning home to Washington, D.C. The D.C. City Council voted 11-2 yesterday to approve the RFK Stadium revival project. Now work can get underway for the target date of 2030. Plus, the Nats, they fall yesterday by a score of 9-4 to the Atlanta Braves. Brad Lord with 5 1/3 innings pitched, giving up 6 hits and 2 earned runs. Another day, another game blown by the Nats bullpen, allowing 12 hits through the final 4 frames. Nats with an off night tonight. They will kick off their weekend series versus the Mets tomorrow. That'll be at 7:10. Pregame with Charlie Slows and Dave Jagler at 6:40 on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. That is what's trending.
It looks like Washington. I was right. Denver Raiders 19 times on Monday Night Football. Washington Dallas 17 times. Those are the two most common matchups. That's according to AI. For whatever, I don't know why Monday Night Football, why the Wikipedia page doesn't list the most common matchups, but I'll go with that. I know for a long period of time, those were the top two matchups on Monday Night Football. I wonder if in recent years something has moved ahead of it. Maybe. 301-230-0980. All right, let's get through these calls. Give me your number one RFK memory. RFK's being demolished. It's almost done. They're in the final stages of it. Yesterday, simultaneously with the stadium being demolished, they got this second and we think final vote in. The team is going back to D.C. In 5 years. Let's go to our guy Lap in D.C. Lap, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? Thanks for taking my
How are you,
call,
Lap?
man. All my memories as a kid was just great, man. Just remember just the atmosphere, the stadium rocking, because my grandfather was a season ticket holder for like, I don't know how many years, over 20 years, and he always used to take me. But the one game I always remember, which looking back at it now, was so dope, that the 96 game against the Niners and the Redskins, when we lost in overtime. But, Brian Mitchell was in that game. Jerry Rice was in that game. T.O.
Such
Steve
a
Young,
great
man.
game.
Just to see that, man.
Yeah.
And we lost in overtime.
Steve Young, I had Steve Young on the show, I don't know, 10 years ago. That was such a memorable game because remember, that was the team that started out 7-1, the North team that really started off really well. And then obviously caved at the end of the year, and we ended up with a meaningless, final game at RFK. But that game against the 49ers, Steve Young remembered it vividly. He said there was something special about RFK, and he remembered it as a chilly, damp, gray afternoon, and the stadium was rocking. And the 49ers won that game in overtime. Yeah, great game.
Yeah,
great game.
Great game, and we used to bring the pita sandwiches. My grandfather used to make the pita sandwiches, and we used to sneak them into the stadium. So,
Thanks,
man,
Lap.
those was great memories. So hopefully we get some new ones, bro.
Yep,
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Look, I've said this before. These last 5 seasons in Landover have a chance to be the most memorable 5 seasons in Landover, right? I mean, there have not been many Titanic games played in that stadium by our team, but maybe, it will probably triple, if not quadruple, the number of big, important games in that stadium over the next 5 years. That's certainly in play. Let's go to our guy, Chad in Nashville. Chad, go ahead.
Okay, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Chad.
So look, man, I'm 32, right? So obviously I was just born right after they won a Super Bowl. My father, I'm a 4th generation. I've told you before, great-grandmother, Native American Skins fan. My dad and Pop used to go to all those games. They had season tickets. And my dad used to tell me, he coached Tim Strachan. I don't know if you know who that is.
DeMatha.
Tim Yeah, DeMatha. Yeah, he was. My grandfather started the organization Maplewood, the boys club.
Wait,
and
what's your father's name?
Kevin Laverne, and his dad was Kenneth Laverne.
Okay. I'm very familiar with
close.
Maplewood. Two of my boys played Maplewood. Maplewood's legendary in Montgomery County for football. And so many guys that are listening right now have had their kids play at Maplewood or have coached at Maplewood. But go ahead, give me your RFK story real quickly.
Yeah, so he used to talk to me about the replacement game and the replacement players. See, a lot of people don't know the movie The Replacements was actually a true story based off.
Yeah, it is.
Story.
Yeah.
And
the 87 team.
Yes. And he said that he remembered they showed up late. They used to always be early, but they showed up late. And they were going in, and he remembered all the replacement players showing up and them getting cussed at, stuff thrown at them.
Yeah.
And my pop was like, "Are you kidding?" Like, my pop was just like, he was laughing at the time as a kid, but my pop was like, "Are you serious?" Like, he couldn't believe it. And he used to tell me how the stands would shake. You would think it was going to collapse. and that it was like kind of scary, but it was amazing. Like you couldn't hear yourself. You could hear it from miles away. And I wish I can get that. I will say my cousin said that the Falcons game last year was the best game he had ever been to. They've gone to.
Yeah, I wasn't there that Sunday night game, but I heard it was great. Chad, I got to move on. I want to get some people in here, and I got a break here in about 3 minutes. Appreciate the call as always. Let's go to our guy Dennis in Frederick. Dennis, go ahead.
Oh goodness, Kevin, so many memories, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm going to tell you about one football game, and it was a playoff game. I think it was 84. It was against the Bears. This was before the Bears won it all at RFK. Muddy day. I was in an end zone, and most of the stuff that happened was in the other end zone. But one play was the Bears had the ball at about midfield. Willie Galt does a pretty simple slant in. Darryl Green is on him. Darryl Green slips. Willie Galt gets it, runs for a touchdown. That night I am watching. I don't know if it was George Michaels or whatever, but they got Willie Galt on there, and Galt is saying this after the game. He says, "Yeah, I got the ball, and the only guy who could have caught me fell, so I knew I was going to score." And it was awesome to have watched that. So
they had. Remember, there was a fake a halfback option. Walter Payton threw a touchdown pass in that game, and that was the game. By the way, Washington had gone to 2 straight Super Bowls. '84, they won the NFC East again on the final Sunday of the season, beating the Cardinals. Neil Lomax and company, Roy Green beat him in a close game to win the NFC East, and then that was the beginning of the Bears. Next year was the '85 Bears, but they sacked, I'm looking it up right now, they sacked Theismann a bunch of times in that game. Their defense was awesome. 7 sacks in that game. Theismann got sacked by, how many did Richard Dent have? Richard Dent had 3, Dan Hampton 2 of the 7 sacks, and that was the Bears went on to lose to the 49ers the next week, but the following season was lights out. The '85 Bears, that defense, I think the all-time best. Thanks for that, Dennis. Let's go to Billy in Chantilly. Billy, go ahead.
Kevin, good morning. I have 2 great ones. The first was I was a member of the Chantilly 1977-78 Chantilly Youth Association soccer program. Played at halftime of the Washington Diplomats game. The grass was about 9 inches deep. My brother also on the team does a cross. I do a header goal in front of probably 800 people.
What about something that isn't necessarily about your athletic exploits?
Well, Kevin, it's always about me. It's always about
I've noticed that over the years.
My dad, we were huge fans. My dad was nowhere near the means, obviously, that the Sheehan family was, so we very rarely got tickets, but somehow managed, being resourceful as he was and raising 2 great kids, managed to get tickets to the seat cushion game, went to the seat cushion game. I throw my cushion. It's on its way down. My brother is more nostalgic, wants to keep his cushion. I point over to the left, look, free beer. He looks to the left. I grab his cushion, fire his cushion. I didn't hear the end of it the whole ride back to Chantilly, but a hell of a
you're one thing, if not anything else. You are consistent because almost every story involves your brother, your father, and beer. Love you. Good memory, Billy. Appreciate that. Let's go to Ross in Tampa. Ross, finish it up for us.
Hey, Kevin, I'll make it real quick. I know I'm up against the clock. Yesterday reminded me so much of that story that you told about the Maryland coach where, like, you guys had an event going on, and at the final second, he's like, yeah, I need more money. Stretched you guys out. And it was like, oh, I'm just playing. Let's do this.
Lefty. Yeah,
that's pretty much what DC or whoever was responsible because of the tree situation was doing because it
all right. It's done. 11-2. We're good. Give me a memory from RFK.
Well, since I'm young enough to be your son, I don't have no memories, but I'm just glad I got to drive by it last summer. I'm super excited about it. I just hope that it's something similar to the renderings that we saw in January. This is something that I'm really excited about, and I can't wait to see until the official renderings.
It's going to be great for so many of you guys that didn't get to experience, what we got to experience at RFK. And, I do think there are going to be some pretty cool experiences in Landover over the next few years. Let's give Gary a shot to finish it up. Gary, go ahead. Thanks for holding, by the way.
Hey, Gary and Frederick, 66 years
Yep.
old. I was at the game when Frank Robinson hit 2 grand slams against the Senators. I think it was 67, 68. It was awesome. Even though we were Senators fans. And the other game I remember is the Rams playoff game where we won 19-7. And Jess Atkinson kicked 4 field goals, and it was Christmas Eve. And we were in the end zone by the Longines clock, and those end zones would literally throw you up in the air. They would rock so much. And Eric Dickerson took off for a long run away from us, and Darryl Green caught him.
Yep.
And that was awesome. 19-7, and never got above 32 degrees on Christmas Eve, but we went out of there warm and happy.
Yeah, it was cold and it was a wild card game. Back then there was just one wild card game per conference per weekend, and Washington had to win that wild card game, and then they went on to Chicago the next week to win, and then they got beat by the Giants in the NFC title game. Great memories. Appreciate all of you who called. Those of you who I didn't get to, sorry about that. We will certainly have over the coming months and coming years more opportunities to talk about RFK as we see the development of this new stadium. Denton's going to join us next, talk a little college football. Maryland's got a big one, first conference game, first road game as a 3-0 team with a quarterback that a lot of people are talking about. We'll do that next.
Pick up your book bags. Grab your notebooks. It's time to go on campus with Denton.
Hey, give me my theme music.
Is the host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM on Saturdays. He is the host of the Washington Commanders pre- and post-game shows on not only this station, the Team 980, but also 106.7 The Fan. And he is doing well at the BetMGM network as a part of a show that he's involved in, not only on air, but as a producer as well. You know, I wanted to start before we get to last week and then some of the games this week, including the Maryland game. What's going on at UCLA and Virginia Tech, where both coaches were fired after last weekend? And I know it triggers some sort of window for players to immediately enter the portal. What are the rules? You might not know the answer to this, and if you don't, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I guess I've already done that. But could basically Virginia Tech's entire team bolt after the head coach was fired?
I'm not super well versed in all of the rules, but they've never, no one has ever really explained them, which I think is the frustrating element of this whole process. But theoretically, when a coach is fired, you have a window, I think it's 30 days, where you can jump in the portal and just kind of go. And it's not, we've seen something like this happen before. It's usually not, at least in the middle of the season, due to fired coaches. It's due to money stuff. Remember that kid from UNLV last year got off to a 3-0 start, had that handshake NIL deal and said, I'm out of here. So we've seen it more for that rather than the firing of coaches. Usually what happens is they just kind of go and splurge at the end of the season, and it's a mass exodus.
I guess, and I'm reading right now, you mentioned it, you nailed it. Head coaching changes trigger a 30-day window for players who wish to enter the portal and explore a transfer. I mean, you could literally bring a season to a halt with that rule because players are bolting. I mean, you're going to get a lot of players that will say, go ahead and bolt. This will give me my opportunity to get onto the field. But it just seems so ridiculous. And we've got the multiple portal windows already in the sport. Let's talk about the sport and the games, because what's interesting, Denton? I think you and I have talked about this either on the air or off the air. With all of, the changes to college football and college basketball, we've got a salary cap now, we've had the transfer portal, we've had NIL, we've had conference reshuffling, et cetera. What's really interesting about that is so many people bitch and complain about how it's ruining the sport. But you know what? For me, and I can only speak for myself, when 12 noon on Saturday comes and the games begin, it is still an incredible product. And I don't feel any less passionate about the games and the sport during the season. I get upset during the off season, but once the games start, it is still, you get used to where the players have landed. You get used to, where the teams are. And the matchups are massive. I mean, Georgia-Tennessee last week, I mean, that could potentially end up being the game of the year, except we both know there will be another dozen just like it between now and late November. Do you feel the same way or not?
Yes. First of all, there might be one literally at noon this weekend with Texas Tech and Utah.
Yeah.
Look, if you are watching Georgia and Tennessee and you're thinking to yourself, you're sitting at home, you're sitting in a bar, wherever you're watching this thing, and you're like, this is not as fun because the guy that just jumped over a defensive back is getting paid too much money, you're a loser, right? Like in February, we care about it. In April, we care about it. When the games are being played, you should not be caring about it.
I don't care.
Like the one caveat is if you're losing money and then you just rage and you talk about how these players are getting paid and they can't make you money. Like that's like the one thing. But outside of that, no. Like I'm not watching great football games and thinking, these guys are getting paid too much. I can't enjoy this. That's just not how my brain operates.
Yeah, and that game was so good in such a great environment. I was watching that game and I texted one of my boys who was watching the game and I just said, this is the deep end of the college football pool. Like I'm watching that game, and honestly, it doesn't look like any of the other games that I'd watched that day. The speed, the size, the skill, the athleticism, it was off the charts. And I felt badly for the Tennessee kicker. I mean, he did make the one in overtime, but it seems like, they had that big win over Alabama, but it seems like more times than not, it doesn't end well for Tennessee.
No, I mean, they haven't beaten Georgia since 2016.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because over the past couple of years, Tennessee's been good. And they, as you mentioned, they've beaten Bama in that time frame. They've been good. They just cannot get over. I don't know if it's, I honestly don't even think it's the players. There's something with Heifel mentally. He can't get over Kirby Smart. He's like the arch rival. I thought the way that he coached Heifel in the fourth quarter was atrocious. Just poor clock management, maybe not understanding math. Maybe he thought 5 + 3 = 9, which is why he decided to play super conservative with like 8 minutes left. I did not like the way that he coached against Kirby Smart. You kind of you want to talk about the deep end of the pool talent-wise, definitely. You also saw that with the coaching discrepancy. Like, there's no one that is Saban, obviously, but Kirby Smart right now is the best coach in college football. I thought he was, really, really good in the late stages of that game. And that, in this instance, that separated, I thought, the win versus the loss. And as we get deeper into the season, your coach has got to be ready to handle some big-time moments. I thought Smart did a great job.
Speaking of coaches, I don't trust Mario Cristobal. But with that said, I think Miami's totally legit. That offensive line is sick. They can run the football. Carson Beck, I said it 2 weeks ago, I think he's going to win the Heisman. He's now the favorite to win the Heisman. Do you agree with me that the Canes are legit? Even though I'm telling you right now, I'm going to give out Florida tomorrow plus the short number in that game. But tell me what you think about the Canes.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think Beck's been really, you're seeing the best of Carson Beck in the first couple of games for Miami, and they're not playing bad opponents. It'd be different if they were doing this against Kent State 4 times, but they're not. They're playing good opponents. He's doing it against Notre Dame, even USF. While USF is not going to be as good as some of the teams that Miami plays, especially with Florida State on their schedule coming up after this Florida game, USF is a pretty decent team, and they still just completely blew the doors off of them. The nice thing for Miami and Florida this weekend, if you're a Canes fan, is that Mario Cristobal doesn't screw games up, Kevin, until November. So you get a couple of months. There's going to be a game in late October, November, where we're going to do this on a Thursday, and it's going to be all we talk about. You're like, how did he do this again? What was he thinking? One of those games is going to come. The question, though, is going to be, do they have enough talent to overcome that? And I think for the first time in a couple of years, the answer to that's yes.
I had Murray on my podcast yesterday, Tim, and he said, look, they're scheduled the next 3 weeks. Florida State. But Florida, by the way, for those of you they are not following, yes, they lost to USF. They lost to LSU in Death Valley, a game that was much closer than the final score indicated. Then they go to Tallahassee, and then they get, Miller Moss, Jeff Brom, and Louisville. I like that team, by the way. Tim's like, they're going to lose one of these next 3. I'm not sure about that, but if they don't, they're going undefeated in the regular season, and that's almost a lock for a playoff.
Definitely. I think whoever goes unbeaten in the ACC, and I do think there is the potential for one of those teams. It'll either be Miami or Florida State, maybe Georgia Tech. I mean, Georgia Tech's schedule the rest of the way is pretty easy. There's going to be at least one unbeaten team in the ACC, and that team is for sure getting in. And then depending who they play in the ACC championship game, there's going to be an avenue for 2 ACC teams, I think, to get in to the playoff once again, with likely neither of them being Clemson unless something drastically changes there.
All right. Fraudulent or for real? All right. Let me give you the teams. The first one I'm going to give you is Oregon.
For real. I actually think Oregon is, if you're putting Miami right now as the best team in college football, which you didn't say that specifically, but I
think they could end up there. I think they could end up as the number 1 seed in the playoff because of the schedule if they can get through this next 3 weeks, which I think they're the better team than the 3 that they're facing.
Anybody that would tell me right now that Miami is the best team in college football, I would not push back. We haven't seen enough from Ohio State and Penn State. And then LSU, I still have some questions offensively. So if you want to tell me Miami's the best team, sure. I would put Oregon pretty close behind there. I think Dante Moore's done a really good job, and I really like Dan Lanning. I want to see it against better competition, but at the same time, They whooped Oklahoma State's ass a couple of weeks ago. And Oklahoma State is a high-level Power 4 team, but it's not like they were doing that to, Idaho State. That's a team that has real money, that is spending real money, and they just completely destroyed them. I think it's going to be something similar this weekend against Oregon State, so I like Oregon. They're for real.
Well, we're going to find out next weekend when they go to Happy Valley to play that defense, which, by the way, they'll be coming off, a bye week. I'm not a Drew Aller guy, and we'll talk about this game obviously next week because it'll be one of the biggest games of the season next week, Oregon at Penn State. But I'm feeling like that's going to be a wake-up call for Oregon on the road against that defense. But we'll talk about that one next week. Fraudulent or for real, Florida State?
Right now, I'm going to call them for real. And part of that is because I do think Bama is pretty good, and Florida State was just better. I question their ability to be able to hold this consistency throughout the entirety of the season, but I will right now reluctantly say Florida State is for real.
Illinois.
Fraudulent. I think Indiana. I mean, that line, I was stunned by this line, Kevin. I'm sure you've looked at it.
Yeah.
Indiana laying 6.5 was very, very surprising. I like Luke Altmaier. I just don't know if I love Illinois in terms of compared to some of the other teams that you've listed. So I am going to say, seeing as they're a top 10 team, I'm going to say fraudulent for Illinois.
A&M.
I think A&M's for real. I like Marcel.
You don't like the quarterback though, do you?
No, I actually do. I do like the
quarterback. Like Marcel Reed?
Yeah, I think he's pretty dynamic. I don't know that he is a like, he's certainly not the best quarterback. I would not put him in any of those discussions, but I do think there is something about him where he has a little bit of gamer in him. So I think if he can not make silly mistakes, I think Texas A&M, this is the best chance that they've had in a long, long time of not only just getting to the college football playoff, but being able to win double-digit games this year.
Fraudulent or for real, this is a very intriguing matchup Saturday afternoon, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is for real, but that schedule is going to kick the snot out of them. They are in the worst spot this year, Kevin, because I really do think they're good. I think their quarterback is really good, but after they play Auburn this weekend, which will be a nice test, they get layup game against Kent State, which Kent State's going to get 70 hung on them. And then it's Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, Missouri, LSU. Sheesh. I mean, what a gauntlet that is. So I think they're for real, but I don't know that they'll be able to survive that. I do think this is the first year that a 3-loss team could potentially get into the playoff, but that's going to be, if Oklahoma only has 3 losses by the end of that schedule, I think they'll deserve a spot in the playoff.
Tell everybody, those that have not watched Oklahoma yet, about their quarterback, John Mateer, who right now is the second odds favorite behind Carson Beck to win the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, he is another guy that is a gamer. One, he wears a headband, and anyone that's ever wore a headband is automatically cool as a guy that used to wear a headband a lot. But I think he really processes well. That was my biggest takeaway against Michigan. How many times just over the course of college football and NFL football have we seen a quarterback go up against a Wink Martindale defense and get exposed? Wink, wink. We've seen it a bunch, right? He did not. I thought he handled it really, really well against Michigan. So against Auburn, it'll be a test. I think this one will be much more of a track meet than that game was against Michigan, because once Oklahoma scored a certain amount of points, they kind of knew the game was over because Michigan couldn't score. Auburn's a little bit different, but I think Mateer is going to end up being the story of what would otherwise be a Jackson Arnold revenge game. He plays quarterback now for Auburn. He was with Oklahoma last year. That was a terrible situation. Oklahoma didn't do right by him. He wasn't exactly spectacular. They move on. This should be a revenge game, but Mateer is really, really good. He can use his legs. He can make a bunch of throws, not all the throws, but a bunch of throws. I think he's really, really good.
Georgia Tech, fraudulent or for real? The 3-0 Yellow Jackets knocked off Clemson last week.
They are for real because of their physicality at the line of scrimmage. And I think no matter who they end up playing, either in the ACC or as they go further into the season, you can't fake physicality at the line of scrimmage. That's one thing where Brent Key over the course of his career has excelled. I do feel bad for Georgia Tech, though. Depending on what happens with some other jobs across the country, he is going to be sought after like crazy. If Florida ends up moving on from Napier, key is going to be right in that discussion. He's done a great job with the program. I do think they are for real. I got a 7-1 ticket on them making the playoff that I feel really good about. I really like that team.
So Alabama gets beat and handily in the opener in Tallahassee. They've bounced back. I mean, they haven't beaten anybody unless you think Wisconsin is decent. They crushed Wisconsin in Tuscaloosa last week. I'm becoming a fan of Ty Simpson, not just as a college quarterback, but as a next level quarterback. What do you think?
So I haven't judged him from the lens of what would he look like on Sundays, but I do think Alabama has done a really good job since that Florida State loss of using the next two games to get right. Like, that's what UL Monroe is for. That's what Wisconsin is for. Get our quarterback.
That's what Wisconsin is for. I mean, that's painful for a Wisconsin fan to hear, but it's true.
It is. I mean, could you imagine saying that, 5 years ago that Wisconsin was a get-right game for Alabama? It's crazy. But that's kind of what they are right now. He didn't look good against Florida State. He wasn't seeing things. He looked very discombobulated because of the speed of Florida State. They've done a really good job getting him into a rhythm. And I think Kalen DeBoer deserves a lot of credit for that, but Ty Simpson also deserves credit for that. We've seen this on several different occasions. I mean, we're seeing it right now in Texas. You got a bad game, and it just completely messes with the psyche of a quarterback. I think they've done a really good job making him comfortable, and I do think that Alabama is a really good team. That Florida State loss, will look back on it and say maybe that was just Florida State being really good, but Bama's a good team.
Yeah, they get Georgia, I think, next week. Arch Manning, what's his issue?
He has the yips. He is not, I don't know if he's not seeing things. I mean, he's under the most amount of pressure that we have seen a quarterback under in a long, long time. I know Feinbaum compared it to Tim Tebow. I never was on board with that, but he is under the kind of pressure that a guy like Tebow was under because everybody anointed him as the savior of a program that has not won a championship in almost 20 years, which is crazy to say that Texas hasn't won in almost 20 years. He's not seeing it. I mean, to have the performance you did against Ohio State week number 1, fine, right? First game of the season, going up against a really good defense led by an NFL coordinator that's now coaching in college. Naturally, Patricia will be able to get after a guy that hasn't played a lot of football. But to not perform against UTEP,
I know,
it's kind of embarrassing, especially given the expectations.
It was bad.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he needs to contact J.J. McCarthy and get his meditation specialist or what, but there's something going on upstairs that they need to connect, and they need to connect that soon, because if not, they're going to lose some games that would otherwise be winnable.
All right, let's finish up with Maryland. Malik Washington, stud, 4-star, sought-after quarterback from Howard County, gets the start as a true freshman. The Terps haven't played anybody yet, and you could say that they're getting an opportunity here with kind of a light Big Ten schedule. They open on the road for the first time. Their Big Ten schedule, not opening on the road for the first time in their Big Ten lifetime. I'm just saying this year in Madison against Wisconsin, they are 10-point underdogs. That seems like an awful lot. But what are people in the sport saying about Malik Washington?
I think people are excited about Malik Washington, but they want to see it against bigger competition. As you know, people had been excited about Talia, and then he sees big competition, and he's not all of that exciting anymore. Same thing with Billy Edwards. I think
this guy's legit, though, talent-wise. Big dude,
He's much better. I think talent-wise, he's the best quarterback that Maryland's had in a long, long time. If he can perform against Wisconsin and Maryland can beat Wisconsin, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. I was stunned that line was 10.5. I think that will completely change the narrative surrounding not just this year's Maryland football team, but the potentially Maryland football teams to come. I think it makes Locke's job a lot easier in terms of recruiting if you can point to a guy and say, hey, we have a quarterback, come play with him.
That's a really good point, and it makes this game crucial, actually. If Maryland somehow could go into Madison and win Sunday to get to 4-0, beating Wisconsin's not a big deal, but as a 10-point underdog and Malik Washington looks the part again, they've got some interesting games. I mean, they should be able to beat, Washington at home, should be able to beat UCLA on the road. Nebraska's going to be tough. They're coming here. They got Indiana, but they would be headed towards a bowl season with this kid. And then the pressure would be off Locks. and he'd come back next year. There's a lot going on because if this season goes sideways, locks, who knows what'll happen with a new AD, then the quarterback leaves and you're starting all over. Speaking of coaches, last question. Is Dabo in trouble or not?
No, because I don't think there's anybody better. As annoying as Dabo is, and he is annoying, and some of the things that he said this week are very annoying. There's not a lot of better options right now for Clemson that does not involve a complete and total overhaul. Venables would have been the guy had he still been there, but when he left, I mean, they're not going to get excited about either the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator coming up and taking his job. And I would imagine they want to keep that in-house. So I don't think he's going anywhere, but man, this season has been tough for Clemson.
At the Denton Day on X on Twitter, he'll be in Sunday for the pregame show. I'll be on it with him. He'll do the postgame show as well following the game. Thanks. I'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.
Charch next. We'll do fantasy football with him. Interesting college football season so far. It feels very wide open. It feels like there are 30 teams minimum, probably more than that could potentially make a playoff run this year. Charch is with us, as he is every Thursday in this spot, at Paul Charchian on X, on Twitter. Fantasy Football Weekly and Chop are the podcasts. Before we get to, fantasy football talk specifically, not that it's that unusual. I think, it always grabs the headlines and people think, wow, this is a run of injuries at the quarterback position that is unique. It isn't necessarily unique, but Burrow, Daniels potentially this weekend, McCarthy in Minnesota, Brock Purdy in San Francisco, Justin Fields, what do you make of this? Does it feel different? Because I think we say that every year when it happens.
Yeah, I think it is a little different, Kevin, in that it's all hit us at once. It's not uncommon for these quarterback injuries, but, everything's sort of detonated in 1 week and early in the season. So it's not like these players have been ground down over the course of many, many weeks.
Right.
Here we are 2 weeks in, and we've got 5 starting quarterbacks potentially not playing. I mean, I think 4 for sure, almost certainly, and one's still a question mark there in Washington. So yeah, it's early already to have to go to some backup plans, but that's part of the fun of fantasy football as well, is trying to find out who's agile, who's staying on their toes, who's going to make some key pickups, and who's going to be able to ride out their find wins even without your starting quarterback. And that's, it's part of the fun of it, I think, if you embrace the challenge.
You know what Robert Saleh said after they played the Saints last week? He said Spencer Rattler is special and is going to be a very good quarterback.
Okay, very good is a stretch. I'm not ready to go that far, but the observation I tweeted halfway through that game was Spencer Rattler is non-awful. That kid can.
That's your new thing this year. Not awful.
Not awful.
Yeah.
The kid he has a requisite NFL arm. And I do kind of like him. And the fact that he won that quarterback battle really early in training camp was one of the indicators that there was a chance for him to be good. And I was really impressed. And suddenly you look at the Saints, you don't think of the Saints as having a lot of weapons, but Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and their tight end, if you haven't figured this out already, and you should have through 2 weeks because he's like the number 2 scoring fantasy tight end. Juwan Johnson's legit. So they've got, and you can throw to Alvin Kamara. So they've actually got a plethora of weapons for Spencer Rattler there.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because, of course, your team is Minnesota, the Vikings. If Kevin O'Connell can do with Carson Wentz what he did with Sam Darnold, he is the quarterback whisperer. Because Carson Wentz, when he was on the field here in 2022, he was so bad, Charch, and had the yips, basically. If he ends up, I mean, what are the expectations of the next 2 to 4 games with Carson Wentz in Minnesota?
The old adage, you have to be a pretty good pitcher to lose 20 games.
Yeah.
So here's your Carson Wentz version. On Sunday, he will become the first quarterback in NFL history to play for 6 different teams in 6 years and start a game for each one.
Wow.
That's
Philly, the Colts, the Redskins. Wait, where was he before Kansas City last year?
He was with Kansas City. And then before that, it was the Rams in 2023. And I think you've hit them all. Philly, Indy, Washington, Rams, Kansas City, Vikings.
And he had a start for all of those teams. Wow.
He did. He got a start for all. Now, there's an asterisk on some of these. They were like week 17, like Kansas City. It was the week 18 game. But still.
But what does that speak to? That speaks to 2 things that are true. Both things can be true. He is talented, and he's also a pain in the ass. Right? I think that's it. I mean, he was certainly that here.
Yes. Maybe things will be different.
I shouldn't say it that way. He was super sensitive and difficult to coach, I think.
So maybe he has now been knocked down so many pegs that, it's going to be a little bit like Baker Mayfield, who said, he had to go to ground zero and be built back up. And, perhaps he's going to be baptized in the holy waters of Lake Minnetonka with Kevin O'Connell, just like Kirk Cousins, just like Sam Darnold, just like Josh Dobbs. And maybe he can be an average NFL quarterback, and maybe the Vikings are actually going to be better with him than they were with J.J. McCarthy, who played 8 quarters, 7 of which were pretty bad. And, one amazing quarter, a fourth quarter against the Bears. And there's a chance that Wentz, good enough to hang around on all these rosters, not get cut, be the number 2 guy in many cases. Maybe he'll just play average NFL football, and the Vikings offense will get a little bit better over these next few games.
I love your fan base. It's similar to ours and probably similar to most. It's incredibly reactionary, very emotional. The Viking, Viking Nation is really into it. And I followed it from afar. You know why? Because Cousins was the quarterback, and I'm a big fan of Kirk. And I saw the ups and downs with the reaction. 1 week he's the best ever. The next week he's the worst ever.
Yeah.
But I'm curious with McCarthy, and he looked awful. I mean, awful, with the exception of that one quarter. But we know this. It's 2 games. Like, how could you ever come to a conclusion? But is the fan base, are fans and media members already bailing on J.J. McCarthy?
People are nervous. Yeah, they're nervous. But they also recognize that the offensive line has been bad.
No Darisaw.
No Darisaw, the star left tackle. And the guy behind him hurt too, by the way. Vikings could be missing for this game. And they're favored, by the way, which I don't understand. They could be missing 11 starters on both sides of the ball, between both sides. 11 starters if you include fullback as a starting position. If you don't, then let's call it 10. This team is in desperate trouble from an injury standpoint. And, that's played a factor here too. JJ's also, the accuracy on his passes have been bad. He hasn't made fast decisions. It's troubling right now, but, there are a lot of quarterbacks who've turned out great that had really, really rough starts.
Yeah. All right, we're talking to Charge. So back to just the quarterbacks in general. If you had one of the guys that went down, if you've got Jaden Daniels, you're scrambling for a quarterback right now. Who's out there that can be picked up?
Go get Bengals backup Jake Browning going up against Minnesota, who he's already beat once, by the way, as a starting quarterback. He's one of the best backups in the league. He's started 7 games and played most of an 8th game last week. He has thrown at least 1 touchdown in all 7 games that he has started. And he's actually run in touchdowns, 4 scores rushing in the last 8 games. And a side note for bettors out there, right now he's plus 850 to score a rushing touchdown. You might want to hit that. And Jake Browning, he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to throw to. And as I just mentioned, Vikings riddled on defense with injury. So Jake Browning to me is the target to go get, even ahead of bottom tier normal starting quarterbacks of the, Cam Ward, Russell Wilson, Bryce Young level. I would go get Jake Browning.
We had a lot of running backs taken in this last draft. It was supposed to be, one of the best running back drafts in recent years. Genty's, they got issues along the offensive line. The Hamptons looked very pedestrian. What's going on with all these rookie running backs, and what are the options if you've got one of them?
So for Genty, get this. The Las Vegas offensive line, which you correctly said has been problematic, they're giving him negative 0.2 yards before contact.
That's unbelievable.
Think about that. His offensive line is losing him yards before contact. It's unfathomable. So there's that. And then the other thing that's really hurting Genty, and it materialized on Monday night, his pass blocking is so comically bad that he's turned himself, the videos have gone viral, and he's losing reps to Zamir White and Dylan Laube. This is like generational running back talent coming into the NFL, and he's losing half the snaps to Zamir White and Dylan Laube. And
he can't pass protect. Typical for a young running back in the NFL, but not you. Then you don't take him number 6 overall.
Perhaps not. And he's an elite pass catcher, but he's not on the field on third down because he can't block. So that's killing him too. Now, the good thing about Genty, and way better than Omarion Hampton, who we'll talk about in a second, when he does get a smidgen of open space, he's making guys whip. He's got the 5th best broken tackle rate among starting running backs. So Genty, when he's given just a smidge of open space, he's making the best of it, but it hasn't come together yet. And people are understandably nervous there. For Hampton, this is a bigger worry to me because he had the same number of carries on Monday night as the blind guy did, just 12 snaps in the game. And, fortunately, Najee Harris didn't look any better, but he's a better pass blocker. So there's that. They got Denver this week. And if Omarion Hampton can't get it going here, because teams are running on Denver, they rank 28th in rushing yards allowed. They rank 31st in yards after contact, and they've got the great secondary for Denver. I mean, the way you beat Denver is you go run on them, just like Jonathan Taylor did last week. So if Omarion Hampton can't get it done here, then I think you're in full-blown emergency panic level stuff here on Hampton.
So far, and we've talked about this on the show this week, and we saw it last Thursday night, there are some very impressive defensive football teams for early in the season when sometimes, tackling and other things are issues in the first few weeks. I mean, we know how good the Eagles are defensively, but Charch, the Packers are unbelievably talented on defense. Tampa is good on defense. The 49ers are good on defense. Specific to some of these teams, if you've got guys that are facing the Eagles, the Packers, the Bucks, do you just bail completely?
Packers are the only team that I would put at that level where I would say you've got, you're always gonna start Jamar Chase, right? I mean, there's a level at which you just never bench your blood.
Yeah, of course.
But for Packers, to me, is the one team that I would give real pause to almost every other tier of player because they just look so good. It's so many aspects of the game, whether it's the pass rush, which looks fantastic. The run defense has been very good. Coverage. This has turned into a very good young secondary. And it's all keyed by the fact that the Packers have drafted so well. And when you've got a bunch of high quality, high functioning players on rookie contracts, it frees up the money to go afford to pay Micah Parsons. And now, the Packers, the one team that I don't think I would mess with. Another one we're going to watch closely that people aren't paying attention to, the Browns defense is looking really
it's so good.
They're 2 games, and we're gonna keep an eye on that emerging storyline.
Yeah, I mean, look, they ended up giving up, a lot of points, but, to Baltimore. But I watched that week 1 game against Cincinnati. They completely shut them down. Derrick Henry went from 169 yards against the Bills to 11 carries, 23 yards against the Browns. Myles Garrett, you hand it to him right now. He's the defensive player of the year. I mean, he's
right now. Yeah,
he's spectacular. All right. Thursday night football tonight, Buffalo and Miami. Is Tua off of the performance last week? Is he startable?
Not really. I mean, I'll give you the angle. And last week's metrics were way better. He was a disaster in week 1. And then last week, 215 yards, 2 scores, 81% completion rate, which is a lot of what he does. But usually that high completion rate, and I know you know this, Kevin, it's because he's a dump-off king. But this last week, that 81% completion rate was on a 10-yard passing average. Not bad. I mean, that's like the NFL norm. So, that was double his week 1 distance downfield. And Tyreek Hill, with his longest play in over a year, unlocked last week. So they started throwing downfield. And granted, it helped that they were playing the Patriots. They looks like a really bad defense. A much tougher matchup this week with the Bills. I prefer not to start Tua. He's my quarterback 27. But your ray of hope is that he played Buffalo twice last year, played him well in both games. And, Bills are 12.5-point favorites. It looks, this game plan, the game script might have to be a lot of passing. And when Tua throws more than 40 times in a game, which he's done 6 or 7 times in his career, he averages 333 yards and 2.5 touchdowns. So if you see a blowout coming like the point spread would suggest, just through sheer volume, Tua could be startable.
Meantime, Josh Allen, and I saw this in your notes, the worst fantasy performance of his career in a 30-10 win over the Jets. I mean, James Cook's a pretty good option. They've got good running backs. They've got a running game.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to do it every week for them.
He doesn't, but he's going to tonight. Josh Allen is my number one ranked player at any position for this week. Miami has already seen, from just a rushing standpoint, Miami has already seen 17 quarterback rushes against them. That is the second highest number. And they've allowed 3 quarterback rushing touchdowns. That is the most. But then there's this. Miami has 4 cornerbacks on IR and 2 other members of their secondary who are probably going to miss this game. Their matchups in the secondary and their personnel in the secondary is a disaster. Rasul Douglas, a street free agent 3 weeks ago, is starting. They've got 2 rookies, 5th rounders starting in their secondary. So Josh Allen, air and ground, game on, bounce back games coming for Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, who are down. Josh Palmer's a dart throw here. I love every part of the Bills offense tonight and expect big things.
All right. If Marcus Mariota starts for Washington and you're in dire need, is it a good matchup or not against the Raiders?
Well, the Raiders secondary is pretty darn bad. They rebuilt it in the offseason, and they haven't seen any real fruition on that yet. They ranked 27th in coverage by Pro Football Focus, and they've got some real duds playing cornerback like Darnay Holmes in the slot. Deebo Samuel, just get the ball to Deebo Samuel, and he will roast Darnay Holmes. So there is some opportunities here, but Marcus Mariota, by the standards of backup quarterbacks, he's quasi-functional and stylistically not all that different than what you've got already installed for Daniels. So it's not that there's no hope here. The question I wanted to ask you, and I can't leave this conversation without us talking about, can we talk through the running back situation now that Austin Eckler is done, and whether or not Jeremy McNichols will walk into that role, Kevin?
They like Jeremy McNichols a lot. They've, used him at times, but usually not in the competitive portions of the game because he's a big-time special teamer, and they loved Eckler. Eckler's going to be a big loss. It's really a mystery, Charch, because Thursday night they couldn't protect, they couldn't get open, and yet they didn't even try to run the football with their rookie. Krosky Merritt. So I think there's a chance we're going to see a lot more Krosky Merritt and maybe even Chris Rodriguez. But in terms of that Eckler role, it would probably be McNichols. Yes. Now, what that equates to in snap count, I don't know, because Eckler, remember, was in there a lot on first down as well.
Yep. And McNichols doesn't have that to him, but what he might have from a fantasy standpoint is 3, 4, 5 catch upside, like Eckler did in almost every game. And I could see him being utilized that way. I don't think he'll get the runs that Eckler did, but I could see him getting the receptions that Eckler did.
Always good to do this with you. Thanks. Talk to you next week. Enjoy the football.
You got it, my man. Bye-bye.
Paul Charchi and everybody. We'll do our NFL power rankings next.
All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is finally official. Here's what's happening. The Washington Commanders are returning home to Washington, D.C. The D.C. City Council voted 11-2 to approve the RFK Stadium Revival Project. Now work can get underway for the target date of 2030. And the Nats, they fall yesterday by a score of 9-4. Brad Lord with 5 1/3 innings pitched, giving up 6 hits and 2 earned runs. Another day, another game blown by the Nats bullpen, allowing 12 hits through the final 4 frames. Nats with an off night tonight. They will kick off a weekend series versus the Mets tomorrow. That'll be at 7:10. Pregame with Charlie Slows and Dave Jagler at 6:40 on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Time for our NFL power rankings. Yeah. Top 5 teams in the league and a team sort of lurking on the outside of the top 5 that we could see being in the top 5. I'll give you mine first, Max. Number 5, I think this has changed significantly from last week. Number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. I have them in my top 5. They're 1-1, but they have scored in consecutive weeks 40 and 41 points. I've got the Rams at 4. Big fan of the LA Rams right now and what they're doing on both sides of the football. Matt Stafford's playing at an exceptionally high level right now. They're good defensively. They've got playmakers on offense. They can run the football. They're balanced. I really like the Rams. The key to their whole season is Stafford staying healthy. I got the Bills at 3 in my top 5 NFL power rankings. The Eagles at 2. And after seeing last Thursday night, it'd be tough to put any other team but the Green Bay Packers at number 1. You could say Philly until otherwise, proven otherwise as the defending champs. Every season's a new season. Every week's a new week in the NFL. The Packers, both offensively and defensively, looked absolutely dominant. I don't know that there is a more talented team up front defensively in terms of the pass rush with really good connection with the back end. I mean, that guy Nixon, number 25, was awesome. I hadn't even really heard of him until last Thursday night. The Packers are my number 1 team. What about you, Max? Max?
You can hear me, right? That was weird.
I hear you now.
That I turned the mic on, started talking, couldn't hear myself, and then you said my name. That was very weird. But my power rankings, my number 1 team right now is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, like, he seems to be well on a road. He could win back-to-back MVPs this year, depending on how the rest of this year goes. But I mean, you say this through 2 weeks into the season a lot with the Bills, but this could be that year for them finally, that they break through, beat Mahomes, and make it to the AFC title game, if not the Super Bowl. So the Bills are my number 1. At number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they just that, again, like you said, 40 and 41 points in back-to-back weeks. The defense, that meeting that they had a defensive dinner prior to the game against the Browns to ensure that they weren't going to give up any 15-point leads in the fourth quarter anymore. So hopefully they lock in for that. Number 3, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. And it was kind of a toss-up for me here. I wasn't really sure whether to put them ahead of my number 4 team or behind my number 4 team. I ended up going with what I know and sticking the Eagles at number 3. Number 4 is going to be the Green Bay Packers. That pass rush, incredibly formidable. Brian and I were throwing around some Jaden Reed stats. This might be a big year for him. I think he's
he's hurt.
Yeah. Or was it Jaden Reed or was it Dontavian Wicks?
No, Reed's hurt.
So, yes, Reed is hurt. Dontavian Wicks. See, Packers wide receivers, I get them all mixed up. Dontavian Wicks is top 10 in separation and win rate right now. So I've got an option for number 1 still, and I think that might be going. That might be a deep connection, going into the rest of this year. But my number 5 team, just coming off a big win against the Raiders, Chargers look good, man. Jay Herbo, he's what, number 3, I think, in MVP right now, in MVP betting. So yeah, I think this could be a big year for them, especially if Quentin Johnston has found his hands. So,
all right,
yeah, that's my top 5.
You went AFC heavy up top. I went NFC heavy up top. The team that's sort of lurking, look, I mean, Tampa, the Lions, the Chargers, you could even consider the 49ers. We'll see. I mean, they don't have Purdy here. I think, again, this week, Mac Jones played well. But I do think that Detroit proved last week, look, Chicago may be terrible, but putting 52 up in this league is hard to do, along with 500-plus yards. They looked like they did last year offensively, which is why you really have to, consider the Packers for what they did to Detroit in week 1. This is such a good Monday night game, Detroit at Baltimore at M&T Bank. But after that, they got, the Browns, the Bengals who are banged up. I like the Lions to perhaps maybe pull it off Monday night. And if they do, we'll be talking about them as a top 5 team not before very long. What about you? All right, let's get to a break. Witt Jr. and Kingsbury are both talking, so we'll have some of what they said. We'll do that and more after these words from a few of our sponsors. Today's coordinator day before practice out in Ashburn. Joe Witt Jr. is speaking right now. He'll be followed by Kingsbury. He said about the game, he said, we came out and played the way we should. Kinlaw was violent all over the place. Secondary did a good job of not letting the ball get over the top. He said that they emphasized that there wasn't good eye discipline in the game against the Packers. Yeah, Kinlaw had a very good game. Steve Suter, who did the film breakdown that you listened to yesterday for sort of the overall game, did a defensive breakdown as well. You can listen to that on my podcast. He said Kinlaw was easily the best player in the game altogether for Washington last Thursday night. So we'll find out this afternoon whether or not the quarterback is practicing. So my question is this at 301-230-0980. If Marcus Mariota has to play, do you feel comfortable that they'll win the game? Because, there are a lot of people that just say, no matter what, sit Jaden Daniels. Bottom line, sit him. Doesn't matter if he's 100% healthy. Caution is the overriding rule here. We don't need him to play the game after he got banged up, 10 days ago. We're good with Marcus Mariota. He proved it last year in the Carolina game when he had to come in against a terrible opponent. And this opponent isn't, that threatening. If Marcus Mariota has to start the game, are you comfortable that it's a win, that they can go out and beat the Raiders? Like, you're okay because you feel like this is the perfect spot. Raiders in town, West Coast team coming east after a Monday night game for a 1 p.m. start, and you feel good about it. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I'll tell you what, I don't think that any game right now for this football team is a gimme, even with Jaden playing. I feel very good that the offense will be what we expected it to be before the season started with Jaden at quarterback. It may not have looked that way at all last Thursday night. I think it was more about the opponent. I think the game against the Giants, there's a lot of hand-wringing over what they did offensively against New York in that game. First of all, New York's a good offensive football team. Secondly, Washington was very close to a much bigger offensive day and more points. I mean, they ended up with 432 yards of offense. They averaged nearly 7 yards per play. They had 25 first downs in the game. They did score 21. They did have some decent field position in that game, but penalties, drops, couple of misses, the deep ball to Terry that Jaden missed on, it was pretty close to being a day that looked like last year. So I actually am not off the confidence level when it comes to what kind of team this team will be offensively this year. And I think it could be that kind of day against the Raiders with Jaden at the helm. With Marcus Mariota at the helm, it's not that I feel like it's a massive step back. It's a big step back, but it's not a step back that you can't overcome. This isn't a situation where, put it this way, if Carson Wentz were starting for us on Sunday, I'd feel a lot worse. I actually think Mariota is the perfect fit for this offense. He's got a good relationship with Kingsbury. They're all connected in that quarterback room. I feel good about that, but I don't think the game is a given. I wouldn't have said it was a given with Jaden, but I would have felt very comfortable that the situation of the Raiders Monday night short week, Washington with the longer rest, that this was a chance to get right. I would have felt like with Jaden, and it still might feel that way, with Jaden at the helm, that this would be a get-right game. With Marcus Mariota, I think it is a coin flip game. I think they can win it. I don't feel like they're doomed at all. He's good enough where they can go out and win this game Sunday for a lot of the reasons I mentioned, but I don't feel as good about it. This isn't anywhere near a lock. Look, the bottom line is whether or not it's more winnable, whether or not they feel like it's a winnable game with them or a much dicier game with them. If Jaden's not healthy, you can't play him in week 3. If he's not 100%, you cannot play him. And that's what we learned from Quinn yesterday. He's got to practice this week. So it's either today or on Friday, he's got to practice. Look, based on what Quinn said yesterday, if he doesn't practice today or tomorrow, he's going to be out. It's not going to be a Chicago situation from last year where he doesn't practice and then all of a sudden on game day, they announce he's the starting quarterback. They weren't sure. They took it all up. They took it all the way up to, game time on that Sunday afternoon. This is a 1:00 game, big time rest from last week. I don't feel like they should play him unless he is 100. But if they don't play him, this is a dicey game. That's the way I would describe it. I would say they certainly can win it. I feel a lot better with Mariota than I would a lot of other backups. But this is a game where the Raiders will be licking their chops because even though the offense doesn't change much, it's a totally different quarterback that you're planning for in terms of his athleticism. And Mariota's athletic. He is. We saw the running against the Cowboys in the season finale last year. That game was, Mariota. Now, there were some rough moments too, but he looked good. 301-230-0980, 0980. If Mariota needs to play and ends up starting the game, do you think the game is, a game that is winnable, that they will win? What's your confidence level with Mariota at the helm? 301-230-0980. All of our football talk on the Team 980 and on this particular show brought to you by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Stream your local NFL game live every Sunday, all season long, starting at just $30 for your first year. That's like $2.50 a month. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. If Marcus Mariota needs to start Sunday, describe how you'll feel. Confident, not confident? I say it's a dicey game with Mariota at the helm. I say it's definitely a borderline coin flip game. I really feel that way. Now, I do kind of like the matchup defensively up front with Kinlaw, with Payne, even without Wise, against the Raiders' offensive line. Like, if they can stop the run and they can make Geno one-dimensional, it could be a defensive-led victory, a 20-10 kind of defensive-led victory. But it's much dicier than it would be. And I would certainly not go into that 1 o'clock kick Sunday with Mariota suiting up as the starter thinking, yeah, we got this. What about you, Max?
I mean, I'm not going to go in thinking that, we're on top of the world, but I can sell myself on a few things. So like you said, West Coast team coming east. I can sell myself on a Marcus Mariota revenge game because I can also sell myself on just Marcus Mariota in general, because there's a reason that he's the backup quarterback in this system. I think the coaching staff is very confident in his ability to articulate and to execute everything in this offense that he needs to do. Now, when Jaden went out of that Dallas game, it did not look good at all in the final week before the playoffs, before we played the Bucs. And then Marcus Mariota came in, and it was kind of like night and day. It was very odd. It felt like we were in the twilight zone of sorts. But I think that this would be the time to get Mariota in. Now, what was it? Achilles tendonitis that he's dealing with, that does kind of worry me a little bit. But
he's fine now. He said he was fine now. He said he's been fine for a few weeks.
Yeah. So I'll believe him there. But I can definitely it's something the win is something I can sell myself on. Now, not wholly confident, but I'd say 60-40 that I'd be confident that this team can get the win. Now I do believe I'm kind of in the same line of thinking as you, that it's probably going to be a defensive led game. Kinlaw is going to have to come up big. Dorrance Armstrong's going to have to come up big. That defensive front as a whole is going to have to shut down Ashton Genty. But
maybe get a couple takeaways too. Geno threw 3 picks on Monday night. You get a couple of those. You get a couple of easy scores, and you win that game. But I like Marcus Mariota. I thought he played well last year. It's night and day. With Jaden in this spot on Sunday, healthy, I'm like, this is a get-right game. This feels like 35-17, 2-1 headed to Atlanta. If he doesn't play, I feel like this could be, unless you get a couple of takeaways defensively, this could be dicey. This could be very close. This could be a last possession type of game. What do you think if Mariota needs to go? 301-230-0980. Kent in Waldorf, go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's up, Ken?
Appreciate you guys having me. I said 50-50 originally, but I guess I can go up to 60-40. You mentioned, them coming from the West Coast, playing on Monday night, things of that nature. So, I could see it being 60-40. But the one thing that I did see this whole year, actually, is the Jaden just seems a little off as far as his accuracy, and it just doesn't seem like he's running the offense totally. And so with Mariota coming in and him having, a little bit more experience under his belt, he may be able to, I don't know if he'll be able to see things a little quicker, but I just think he'll be able to kind of, like you mentioned, articulate and run the offense the way that it's supposed to run, at least.
Yeah, I think
I don't like those
that's
bubble
a given.
screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like those bubble screens. I think they really need to start really focusing in on a run game. And I do think our defense is going to hold up. But, you know, on a personal note, I'm a season ticket holder, and there's still some, I don't know, whenever I go to the game, it seems like it's a dogfight. I never get to see a blowout. I'll send somebody else, and the blowout will be seen on television in my man cave. So I'm supposed to go to the game, but I'm.
Well, they had some blowouts last year at home. Cleveland,
yeah,
Carolina.
I sent somebody else to those games. I didn't get to see it in the stands.
Well, you got to pick the right games. You got to pick the right games.
I've been trying.
Yeah,
I've been trying. Hopefully, this will be one. We'll see.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate that. Yeah, Marcus Mariota, the best part about it is you're not going to be limited in what you run. He can run everything. There's a really good, quarterback room. They talk about that. In fact, there's a quote here from Kingsbury as he is speaking right now. First of all, he said that Jaden's preparing mentally and will take it from there. So that would be an indication, I would guess, that Jaden is going to miss practice again today. And he was asked about the Commanders' tight-knit quarterback room. And Kingsbury said, quote, this is from Ben Standing, "I'd let any of them marry my hypothetical daughter, except Sam Hartman. He's way too good-looking." Closed quote. 301-230-0980. Chris in Delaware. If Marcus Mariota starts on Sunday, what's your confidence level that they'll win the game? I'm at maybe slightly higher than 50-50. All right, I said coin flip, but I'll go slightly higher than 50-50. I could easily see against that offensive line and our D-line being improved, a defensive-led win, maybe a +2 in the turnover margin, 23-13, something like that. But I would be not as confident. If Jaden were playing, I would say this feels like a get-right game. Feels like 34-16, and we're 2-1. Chris in Delaware, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking the call. Yeah, I think, I'll caveat with what I'm going to say with if Jaden's healthy, I feel great about this game, quite honestly, in most scenarios. However, it seems like this team has fallen into some sort of step of complacency. And I think Cliff, in some way, maybe has gotten a little bit lazy or kind of fat and happy with some of the play calling because he knows he has Jaden who can just put on the cape, or at least he has just put on the cape. And I think in some weird juxtaposition, silver lining, Mariota playing in this game, which has a ton of storylines, by the way. You have Carroll versus Quinn. You have Mariota in his revenge game. I think this is an opportunity for a shock to the system. The team knows they have to rally behind this guy, and I think they're going to. So I think it's.
You almost sound like you'd prefer Mariota to start Sunday.
Look, if Jaden, I caveated it. If Jaden's healthy, I want him playing. Okay. He is the best player on the field, and we've talked about that before. But in some weird turn of events, because he's injured, this might be the opportunity for shocking the system. Like the team's needs resuscitation in some weird way. They need a jump, and I think the defense is going to play well, and I think Mariota is going to handle the offense just swimmingly, and we're going to win this game. If I had to put a number on it, it's a 65-35, 70-30. I feel good. I feel good with this game. So,
by the way, you pointed out some of the storylines, including Mariota playing one of his former teams. If he were to start Sunday, and let's just say he were to start next Sunday, it would be back-to-back revenge game opportunities against the Falcons. And that thing did not end well in Atlanta with Arthur Smith, remember, during that season in which he was part of that quarterback Netflix series. Did not end well. Mahomes, Cousins, and Mariota were a part of that original one. And Mariota, all of a sudden, in those last 3 episodes, was gone because there was a real strange situation where he kind of left the team with an injury when they went to Desmond Ridder. Let's go to Peter in Wilmington. Peter, if Mariota starts Sunday, what's your confidence level of a win?
100%. And, every good team, this is a good chance to see if we have a real backup quarterback, because every good team needs a good backup. I don't care if it's Mahomes, Jaden, but I'm also wondering if Jaden's wrist does not bother him, because that was like the first injury. You know what I mean? Does that
Has anybody heard about his wrist?
No, nothing about his wrist.
Okay.
You're talking about, you said
And
wrist,
thing,
not ribs, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he was.
That's what. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it was a bit of a surprise that he was on the injury report last week, but he didn't miss any practice time, but he was on there with a wrist. But it was clearly not an issue because he took every rep during practice and played. Although, keep in mind, there wasn't much practice, actually, now that I think about it, leading into the Green Bay game on Thursday night. Yeah.
Let me make one more point.
Sure.
And had the offensive line done a better job with the rookie, you know what I mean? Going up against Micah Parsons on your first game, your second game is really tough. So that's the main reason where we're at, because he had no time whatsoever. But I'm 100%. But I 100% on Mariota's playing and doing well. But I know that Jaden's not playing this weekend. I'm 100% sure of that. There's no way.
Okay. By the way, I'm leaning in your direction. I'm not 100% on it, but the idea that Kingsbury just said Jaden's taking mental reps means that more likely than not he's not practicing today. I haven't seen that officially put out there, but the point being is that if he's not going to if he's not practicing today, then we're in that situation where if he doesn't practice tomorrow, Quinn already said he's out. He needs to be on the practice field for one of these practices leading into Sunday. So we won't have that question mark around it heading towards Sunday like we did last year with the rib injury and the Bears game. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
Big guy, L to the W. How you doing?
What's up?
All right, so let me get this right. So last year with the rib injury, and I know these different injuries, it was okay for him to miss practice and take mental reps and virtual reality reps. But this year, the second year, is not good enough.
That's what it sounds like. But I think the injuries are different, Paulie. I think the injuries are different.
I said it's two different injuries. I
Yeah.
do understand
Well, that would be the reason, right?
Hey, I don't know. I still think he's going to play, man. Long as there's no structural damage, no tears, or whatever, and he can protect himself, I think he'll play. But
okay, so if he doesn't, though.
Yeah, I said we're talking Mariota. I told Max 50-50, but I'll go 55-45. And I remember, listen, man, the good feeling of last year after Thursday is gone for me. So I'm a little cautious. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
Reality struck. Reality has.
You know what? You know what's so interesting is you definitely can put on the it's all about convenience for you, because if anybody even suggested at any point during the offseason, last year's schedule, the close games, you're screaming, what are you all afraid of? Man up. They're going to be afraid of us. Okay. And here you are 2 weeks into it. I don't feel the same way.
No.
Toughen up, man. It was one game.
What I mean by that is this is not I don't have that, okay, we're going to carry over the good vibrations to this year. Like, we start from step one again. And that's how we got to look at it. I still got the confidence. I still got us 12-5 and all that.
Doesn't sound like it.
I'm not looking past any team like, oh, we should beat the Raiders. We're better than the Raiders. No, we got to start in step one. But saying that with Mariota, I do remember last year, he almost had the same type of circumstances where he didn't practice a lot in the preseason, and it kind of showed in the first two series against Carolina.
Yeah, it
he
did.
He looked a little behind, and he looked a little, unsure of himself. So
right.
I think he'll put on a good performance, but I wonder how long it's going to take for him to catch up with the speed of everything. And because we need to get out to a quick start against the Raiders. We don't need to be giving them confidence on the road.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I'm concerned about is how long is it going to take Mariota to catch up to the speed of the game. Then he hadn't practiced this much this offseason. And I remember last year he started a little shaky against Carolina for the first couple of series. So I'll say 55-45, man. Hell to the W.
All right. Thanks for the call, Paulie. Let's go to Samaj. Samaj, if Mariota ends up being the starter on Sunday, your confidence level in a win?
I'm fully confident, Kev. Thanks for taking my call, Max. How you guys doing today? I'm fully confident, Kev. We are so fortunate to have, in my mind, a second quarterback, a QB2 that's really a QB1. That's how I look at Mariota. Not to mention that he's an older version, but he's damn near a clone of Jaden. A little bit slower.
Stylistically, they don't have to change much. Exactly.
Right. Same type of athlete, same type of skill level. So I'm 100% confident. I have no worries. I do want to toggle on to you and Paulie's comments just there. I anticipate a slow start. He might have a slow, sluggish first quarter, and I think he'll pick it up like he did against Carolina last year, but I'm fully confident. And with that, man, I just want to say, as I always say, Kev, hail to the W, copy on Paulie. I love that. And put the commander back on my helmet, back at the 50. I need my logo back. Thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate that. Warren Sharp's net rest advantage, data that he puts out every year after the schedule comes out. The Raiders have the worst rest edge for the entire 2025 season. They have 19 fewer days of rest than their opponents. And Washington is third worst in the league, but this is the one Washington major advantage. Thursday night football mini bye with the Raiders coming off Monday night, which Warren Sharp said is very much, a rarity to have a team playing on Monday night facing a team off either a mini bye or a bye, a full bye. And the fact that it's also a west to east game is major advantage historically to the East Coast team. But this particular East Coast team may have to start their backup quarterback. That would be the big difference. All right. When we come back, the information through the first 2 weeks on the kickoff rule changes really something else in terms of how it's changed that particular play. I'll share that information with you. Also, again, Joe Witt Jr. and Kingsbury both talking today. We've got some of what they have said for you when we return as well. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on the Team 980 YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there.
gives you confidence in him and able to play, or is the one that you have to start this week? What gives you confidence in him and his ability to execute your offense?
Yeah, last year, just being around him for a year, when we signed him back, we felt like we have 2 starters in the building, which is rare in this league. So anytime he was asked to play or practice or even on scout team, he's been phenomenal. So treats like a pro, as a leader on the team, despite not being the starter, which is hard to do, and can't say enough good things about him. So if he has to go, I'm sure he'll be ready.
Cliff Kingsbury just moments ago. We'll play more of Cliff talking about Marcus Mariota. You'll hear what he said about Jaden Daniels as well coming up here shortly. Joe Witt Jr., Cliff Kingsbury talking. It certainly appears as if Jaden will not be practicing for the second straight day. And I just want to emphasize, because Dan Quinn was asked by Nikki Jabvala yesterday, does he need to practice this week to play on Sunday? And he said, yes, we need to see him take those reps and get that work where, they can really test the knee in a legitimate practice environment. So there are only 2 more practices left this week prior to the Raiders game on Sunday, today and tomorrow. If he's not practicing today, that means it'll have to be tomorrow, or it will be Marcus Mariota. Kevin, he had a higher completion percentage last year than Jaden did. I'm totally comfortable with Marcus Mariota. They win easily regardless of who starts. That from Austin in Potomac. Did he have a higher completion percentage than Jaden did last year? Yeah, he was 7. He had he had 44 pass attempts, 34 completions, 77.3 completion percentage to Jaden 69. I mean, it's apples and oranges because of the attempts. Who knows what Marcus would have looked like all year long. Plus, he got, the Carolina defense, and he got the Dallas team that was playing for nothing in the second half of the season finale. I don't feel uncomfortable with Marcus Mariota starting the game Sunday. There's a lot worse. Ironically, about the discussion and the confidence level in Marcus Mariota, flashback a year ago, or certainly in the offseason of 2024, I would say the majority of you mocked the signing of Marcus Mariota, thought it was stupid, thought that there were many other options for a backup quarterback to Jaden Daniels. I think one of the reasons they loved Marcus Mariota is there were a lot of similarities in the experience that both quarterbacks had. Heisman Trophy winners, number 2 overall, and what comes with that. Marcus Mariota, by the way, in every locker room is always considered to be a gem, and that you could play stylistically the same way with Mariota as the backup quarterback. I mean, the options out there. I mean, you're not going to go sign Joe Flacco to back up Marcus Mariota, to back up Jaden Daniels. And, I don't think they ever considered that Mariota was going to be in the running for a starting position, even though they had this, somewhat competition. But it was pretty obvious to them, I think, in the spring of last year that Jaden was going to be good to go. I feel good about it. I don't feel badly about it. They're 2 different guys. Jaden, this would be, to me, a get-right game. It would feel that way because of all the circumstances we've talked about. Raiders short rest, Washington long rest, Raiders east to west, 1 o'clock game. Oh, by the way, the Raiders banged up offensive line. Geno threw 3 picks on Monday night. It would have felt like a get-right game. With Marcus Mariota, I feel differently. I feel like it's maybe not a coin flip game, but barely, a 52-48 Washington advantage. They'd have to do a lot of things well defensively. They'd have to certainly not lose the turnover battle, which they haven't. They haven't turned the ball over yet, and they haven't gotten a takeaway yet in 2 games this year. But we'll get back to some of the things that Cliff Kingsbury said in a moment. I did want to share with you through 2 weeks as we enter week 3 tonight with Buffalo and Miami, just how incredibly impactful the 5 yards on a touchback on the kickoff has been to the return percentage rates this year. So we talked a little bit about this last week, but in week 1, 75.6% of the kickoffs across the league were returned. That was a dramatic increase from week 1 of the 2024 season, where 33.1% of the kickoffs were returned. Now we go to week 2, and week 2, we had 80.7% of the kickoffs returned. So the overall picture through 2 weeks, 76.9% of the kickoffs have been returned. That's up 30% so far from where we were in 2024 a year ago. And the teams are combining in kickoff return yardage for 201.5 yards per kickoff yards in aggregate per game. Last year, it was 83.1 per game in the first 2 weeks. So we're seeing, this play be a significant play, be an active play. Big plays on returns, and they call those of 40 yards or more. There have been 9 in the first 2 weeks of the season, including, by the way, Antonio Gibson's 90-yard kickoff return for a touchdown last week against the Dolphins. Gibson plays for the Patriots. Only 4 in the first 2 weeks of the 2024 season were returned for 40 yards or more. In 2023, only 2 40-yard kickoff returns or greater in the first 2 weeks of the season. And so far, we've got 9 such returns. So I thought that 5 yards was going to make a big difference. And here's what sort of also is driving this is with the rule around the kicking ball now being able to be massaged for months, weeks leading into these games. The kickers have essentially said this is a juiced ball for them. You give somebody the ball at the 35-yard line, and you are, in some cases, depending on how many yards you clear that first down by, you may be a first down and a half away from field goal range. If you've got a Brandon Aubrey, or if you've got the guy in Jacksonville who kicked the 70-yarder in preseason, Cam Little kicked the 70-yarder. And there are a lot of guys now where, 60 plus is not that difficult. So that is really changing the, approach to kickoffs, but also the opportunity for starting field position, which is going to lead to more scoring. And we saw that in week 2. It was the highest scoring week in years. Despite the defenses looking really strong early in the season, we had a very high scoring week last week. And some of that's going to be chalked up to starting field position for sure. Anyway, all right. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, you're going to hear everything Cliff Kingsbury said today, and we'll tell you what Joe Witt said today. I also have a smell test pick for tonight's Thursday night game. We'll get to that as well. And don't be surprised if, I want your bold prediction at 301-230-0980. Don't be surprised if, give me a football bold prediction. It can be our team. It can be any team in the league. I've got one which will result in a big upset this weekend, or at least a perceived upset in the NFL. That's next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. Here's what's happening. It's finally official. The Washington Commanders are returning home to Washington, D.C. The D.C. City Council voted 11-2 to approve the RFK Stadium Revival Project. Now work can get underway for the target date of 2030. The Nats, they fall 9-4 yesterday. Brad Lord pitched 5 1/3 innings, giving up 6 hits, 2 earned runs, and earning 4 strikeouts. Another day, another game blown by the Nats bullpen after allowing 12 hits through the final 4 frames. The Nats, they have an off day today. They will kick off a weekend series versus the Mets tomorrow. That'll be at 7:10 pregame with Charlie Slows and Dave Jagler at 6:40 on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Don't be surprised if ... Give me your bold NFL or Washington prediction for the week. 301-230-0980. I've got one for you. Max has one for you. Before we get to that, though, Joe Witt Jr. spoke today, and so did Cliff Kingsbury. We've got some of the Kingsbury sound cut up. Joe Witt Jr. talked about, eye discipline is a big part of the problem last week, but he did say that Kinlaw had a hell of a game, which he did. This is Kingsbury on his confidence in Mariota.
If Marcus is able to play or is the one that you have to start this week, what gives you confidence in him and his ability to execute your offense?
Yeah, last year, just being around him for a year, when we signed him back, we felt like we have two starters in the building, which is rare in this league. So anytime he was asked to play or practice or even on scout team, he's been phenomenal. So treats like a pro, as a leader on the team, despite not being the starter, which is hard to do, and can't say enough good things about him. So if he has to go, I'm sure he'll be ready.
That was Kingsbury on Mariota. He talked about the close-knit quarterback room. Here's what he said.
Quarterbacks here for 2 years have talked about how close they are. Is that always the case in your experience? And how much does that help, especially during a week like this?
I think it's huge. And you got to give Tavita Pritchard, our quarterbacks coach, a lot of credit for building that type of camaraderie in that room. And David Blau as well, the assistant quarterbacks coach. Just truly good guys that like each other. Like across the board, I would let anybody in that room marry my hypothetical daughter except Hartman, because he's way too good looking. But just phenomenal people above all else, hard workers, professionals, and they're truly like a joy to be around every day.
There you go. He also said that Jaden's taking mental reps. Marcus is taking the physical reps. How about the loss of Eckler, his absence? Here's what Cliff Kingsbury just said moments ago.
What's the hardest thing to replace with Austin?
Just the run after catch stuff and the ability to make people miss in space. We were able to set up some plays and do different things to get him touches that the first guy never tackled him. And that is kind of the hidden yards. You can take some stuff out of the quarterback with a guy who can get you those type of yards. So that will be missed.
And then he talked about Bill Krosky Merritt. And here's what he said, talking about sort of the overall position and his readiness for it.
And then with Krosky Merritt, if he's obviously going to get more touches or time or whatever, what's the challenge for him? What are some things that you're going to need to see out of him if he's in that role?
Yeah, just continue to progress. In I would say playing without the ball. I think every time he's touched it, good things happen. It's just as a young player, there's a lot of things you haven't seen, whether it's pass pro, leading for somebody else, running the proper route technique, things of that nature. So he just got to keep coming. But I've been really impressed by his work ethic and staying on top of it. And he's definitely improved each week.
I'm really interested to see the running back situation Sunday. I would expect, I guess, Krosky Merritt to be in there on first down to start the game. I think Chris Rodriguez will be up and will get opportunities. And then I think there's a really good chance that Jeremy McNichols takes that third down role. We're going to find out a lot about that. We're also going to find out, I think, a lot about the tight end position. Here's what he said about losing Bates.
And then if you're without John Bates for this week, an extended period, whatever, how do you fill the void there with his blocking ability?
Yeah, it's not easy. There's no doubt that showed up the other night. He's a big part of what we do in the run game and has really helped us be successful there. And so we'll just have to be creative with the other bodies we have and mix things up. But to have a guy at the point of attack that we feel is pretty dominant like him and not be able to game plan with him makes it tough.
That's interesting. Like that is pretty much an admission as to why they didn't, try to run the football more. Bates was out. They wanted Bates. They feel like they can't run the football with Bates. What does that mean about Sinnott? What does that mean about Yankoff? Yankoff's more of a receiver. He's not a tight end blocker. Would they use an extra lineman in the game trying to run the football? who knows what's in play with that. Sinnott's snap count's going to be very interesting because they don't have another guy right now on the team that could fill Bates's role in terms of size and, ability. If he's not in that role, it speaks very much to the lack of, Sinnott being ready at this point to take on a big role. And then he also talked about Connerly Jr. And his, the challenges he's had so far.
Josh Connerly has kind of been thrown into the fire against these two defensive fronts. How is he coming along, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely been thrown in the fire. There's no doubt. When you talk about the Giants front, Micah is as dominant as any player I've seen since I've been in the league. And then you get Mad Max this week. It's got his hands full, but he's progressing as a rookie should, learning along the way, on the job training. And I've been really proud of just the way he's battled. We got a ways to go as an entire offense, but I like how he's competed, and he's just got to keep getting better.
I guess nothing out of Kingsbury today on a potential change along the offensive line, right, Max?
None that I have seen. Keim's been putting out all of the quotes that he wrote down. But I have yet to see anything on Josh Connerly potentially being replaced by Andrew Wiley.
Yeah, and it looks like not a lot really going back to last week either. When the game is a week in the rear view and you got a game a few days away, the focus is more on the game. And by the way, with all the injuries they had, rather than finding out for the first time with Cliff, what happened last Thursday night at Green Bay. All right, I've got a smell test pick coming up, but let's get to Don't Be Surprised If. All right. Don't be surprised if bold predictions for the week. If you want to jump on, we've got an open line or two, 301-230-0980. So I'm going to give you an upset in the NFL this week, and this would be categorized as an upset. Most of these games, pretty much anything can happen. But I got the New Orleans Saints going to Seattle and beating the Seahawks, who, by the way, a lot of people like. We had Frank Schwab from Yahoo on yesterday. He said that Seattle is an interesting team to kind of keep an eye on. Spencer Rattler, Robert Saleh said he's going to be a really good quarterback. Rattler was super talented, at Oklahoma first, then at South Carolina. There were a lot of issues with his overall personality and coachability. We saw him last year, remember, in the second half of that game against the Saints. The Saints have weapons. They've got Olave. They got Kamara. They got Juwan Johnson. They've got Shaheed back. That game is at 7, and the world is on Seattle. New Orleans will definitely be a smell test pick. I like them to win the game outright as a touchdown underdog Sunday in Seattle. By the way, their first road game of the year. So don't be surprised if the Saints go to Seattle and win that game outright. That would ruin probably a lot of survivor pool bets. Max, don't be surprised if what?
So I have a don't be surprised if for the Washington and Las Vegas game. One little bet that I'm going to play because I just like anytime quarterback touchdowns. I think Marcus Mariota might run one in this weekend. Don't be surprised if you see Marcus Mariota walk into the end zone. Another one, don't be surprised if this Patriots team kind of finds their legs against the Steelers this week. Pittsburgh's being favored by 1.5, but I don't know. Something in my gut just kind of tells me that Drake May might start putting it together this week. But we'll see. I like the Patriots this week.
There's so many interesting games this week, and most of them are in the 1 o'clock window, which is when our team will be playing. Steelers Patriots is one of them. Obviously, Rams Eagles is one of those games as well. In the AFC South, you've got Texans Jags. That's an interesting early season divisional matchup there. But I mentioned yesterday, there's something, and Big Tony didn't agree with me. And he is the biggest Steelers fan.
He's Mr. Steeler.
There is. I think that Rodgers looked against Seattle anyway a little bit uncomfortable, and I think the play calling in the match, there was too much drop back in the game. I think right now for him to be successful, they've got to be balanced. They got to run the football, and it's got to be a lot of play action, a lot of boot. he can still sling it with the best of them, no doubt. But there was a lot of shotgun, just flat out drop back stuff. I don't think that's the way for them. We'll see. We will see. All right. You know what? We are not going to be able to do calls on this because I got to it too late. My fault. We'll do that next week, though. I do have an early smell test selection for tonight. It is an obvious one. The Bills are 12-point favorites. This number keeps fluctuating. It's been down as low as 11. It's been as high as 13 and a half. There's a whole hell of a lot of super sharp money on Miami tonight in Buffalo, and the public loves the Bills in this game. The perception of Miami is that they are really not very good. Mike McDaniel, especially if they get beat badly tonight. It's possible on a mini bye kind of week he could get fired. I think a lot of people believe that. There seems to be a lot of infighting down there. Tua last week actually had a pretty effective game. He was 26 of 32 for 315. Now, a lot of that was to, Achane. He had 8 catches for 92 yards. A lot of those are check downs. But Miami was in that game against the Patriots, but they rolled up more offense than they certainly did in the opener against Indy. Look, these games always difficult. Buffalo had an easy game. Miami had a tough game. Miami's got to go on the road. But the number, for the number to be that big and for the public to love the favorite laying 12, and there's just a lot of sharp money on Miami. I think the Dolphins cover the 12. That is the smell test pick for tonight. Miami plus 12. There's a college game tonight. Was close to firing tonight on Charlotte against Rice at home, but did not. So Miami plus the 12, smell test rolling so far through 3 weeks of the season. A bunch of games this weekend. I'll have the full-fledged smell test picks tomorrow. There are some good college games, not the best college weekend of the year, but man, why aren't we getting Philly Rams late in the day? That seems to be a scheduling miss. To go look, the NFL schedule makers, Mike North pointed this out when he was on with us in the spring. The Cowboys are still a major draw. The Chiefs apparently are the biggest, and to have them as the marquee game of the week, Brady's calling that game in Chicago, Dallas on the road against Caleb Williams. I don't know. Rams Eagles. That should have been a gimme in the divisional round rematch. That should be a hell of a game. That's a game in which the Rams have a lot to, prove. They have won 9 games straight out of their last 11 if you take out the 2 Eagles games, the playoff game and the regular season game last year. All right, big Friday football show tomorrow. Chris Russell's up next.